Welcome, everyone. This is our December 12th regular Board of County Commissioners work session, and we are joined with our Open Space and Trails Board trustees for our last quarterly meeting, joint meeting of the year. And so welcome, everybody. Thank you for all your hard work that you do on behalf of all the county residents and even beyond. So I'll turn this over to our Director for Open Space and Trails program, Gary Tenenbaum.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Tenenbaum. I'm the Director of Pickens County Open Space, and we're going to give you a little year review at the end of this, just to kind of go over what we have done. But before we start, there is no public comment, but staff, as part of their update, would like to just have Tom Cardamone come up and share, an exciting project that the county has been working on, and that Tom's taken it from more of the private side, and this is a really cool partnership that you'll see flourish next year. So he'll do it quickly.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for lunch. And very briefly, since I last spoke to you all, I've made good progress gathering together the concept and the people that will support it for a watershed-wide biodiversity inventory that would be done on a landscape scale. Now, there was one done some time ago, 18 years ago, that was very targeted to 55 individual places in the watershed, but this one is taking a different approach. I've been in close communication with Gary and Lindsay and others at Open Space, groups like the Aspen Valley Land Trust, ecologists and citizens interested in supporting this, gathering in that citizen support that we think is so important. And the mechanism that I would be employing would be the revival of dormant 501c3 known as Friends of Open Space, and we would be gathering together, and that's still in process right now, a very small board of directors who would be collaboratively oriented and good team players, and I'm taking my time to make sure that happens. The Colorado Natural History program would be the group that would conduct the inventory, and part of the work of this organization would be raising funds to match funds from the county to conduct the inventory, matching local expertise, ecologists, biologists, people like Jonathan Lowski, with the people from Colorado Natural Heritage Program, so that their work is much more efficient, because these are people we know who are on the ground who can help focus the study, and actually also, and very importantly, connecting CNHP scientists with willing local landowners, because the connectivity idea, which is really the overarching idea, where the former study was very targeted and discrete parcels, the connectivity idea is really dependent on the cooperating with local large landowners. And all this, as Gary said, in collaboration with Open Space and Trails and community engagement, and that includes you all. So after this meeting, I will send you all my contact information so that we can carry on communicating about this publicly and individually as as that's needed. And so just wanted to get in front of you and tell you that that this thing is taking on good traction. I'm finding great community support. People are kind of, it might be overstating it to say they're lining up ready to write checks, but before I've even given the organization a name, people are saying, you know, how can we support you? And I already do have 2 or 3 commitments for funding to get this thing launched. So hopefully after the first of the year, we'll be up and running.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Good to see you.
Yes. So the next piece on the agenda is one that I'll have Kara come up and help discuss. But this is, you know, the lottery division, and it's basically looking at GOCO and their reauthorization. So I'll turn it over to Kara.
Thank you. Kara Silbernagel with the manager's office. So before you guys today, what we wanted to bring to both the Open Space and Trails Board and the BOCC in a joint is to give a little bit of background with the with the voters passing the lottery funds in, I'm going to get the years wrong, let's say the 80s. And the GOCO amendment in 92, I believe. Those are in perpetuity. However, when those were passed, they created the lottery division under the Colorado Department of Revenue. That is set to sunset in 2024. So there is a group called Keep It Colorado that is seeking to actually have the General Assembly approve the Colorado Lottery Division during the 2018 legislative session, specifically going out now to reduce any impacts because GOCO funds support so many long-term funding planning projects that they want to have it now so there is no uncertainty as it gets closer to that sunset date. So before you today is a draft resolution for the boards to consider, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Is there any pushback from any? Is there any organized pushback from any sector of our state?
We have not. I have not seen any pushback yet, but I do know that there's some concerns. Just there was. During the legislative session last year, there's some concerns with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife increasing their fees, and so this group is a mix of cross-sector, cross-agencies that is just trying to make sure that this doesn't get political and it stays very much in just ensuring the administrative responsibility moving forward.
Rachel, then Patty, then Howie, then Steve, and
Yeah, I'm very happy to pass this resolution. I think it's very timely. I appreciate you bringing it forward to the board. And kind of to Hawk's question, a lot of people look at the GOCO funds. So I've heard, particularly say the Club 20 in their transportation resolution said we should re-examine how much money goes to the Colorado lotteries. I think there's education proponents who would say more of the Colorado lottery money should go towards college, reducing college tuitions. So I think it's good to be out in front on this and to make it known that we like the program as it is. The biggest thing you might see is like percentage changes to who gets what, and maybe more to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, less to open space acquisition. So I think it's good to promote our position as supporting the plan as it is.
let's see, who was up? Patty, then Tim,
Howie
and
can go first.
Howie was up, okay.
Just going around the tables, thank you, Kara, and staff for getting ahead of it. Maybe a self-serving wordsmithing suggestion at the on the recital number 8 said, for the best interest of the citizens of Pickens County. This is clearly a statewide program, and I think it'd be beneficial for us to acknowledge the state of Colorado in that as well.
Okay, add that.
Pickens County and Colorado.
Good, Tim?
Yeah, I just would note, first, thanks for being here and getting an early start. That's what we've done every time because we have long-term planning, and I think it's wise to do what you're doing, and I hope we unanimously support your proposal. I accept your change.
My question is just procedural. Can we pass this at this meeting, or does it have to come back to the Board of Commissioners at a regular meeting?
We've clarified that, but it's my understanding you guys are still in a special meeting from this morning, so you guys can pass it.
So it's technically noticed, and we can both pass it jointly, because that's a new one for me. Yeah, because I don't have a problem moving it on. I just want to make sure we're doing it correctly. Thanks, Kara, for looking
Jeanette
at it.
helped me through it. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the Open Space Board is in an open meeting, so they can
So we're good on
make
both
motions.
calls. Great, thank you.
Steve?
I'm skeptical in a way. The Colorado legislature is notoriously slow and behind schedule on doing some very important things in the state. And the fact that they want to reauthorize this 6 years before it expires, to me, raises a red flag, to be completely honest with you. I think there's a story behind this that we don't know, and perhaps it's that Jerry Sonnenberg is term limited, or something like that is going on, I think, behind the scenes at the state legislature, why they want to do this 6 years before it expires. And I totally support extending the date to 2037 or whatever the year is, but I would really be curious to know what is really going on behind the scenes in the state capitol.
I don't have a crystal ball or a real answer, but the best that I have heard is with GOCO grants being sometimes 5 years funding out, that they want to try and get this approved now so that there's no question of what happens with that 5-year funding. Again, the funding will always stay in place, but the administration of it, and so that's why they're trying to get it now, so that for all the entities such as Open Space that might get 5-year planning grants, that's not becoming a question in 2020 or 2021, and no one's sure if they can still do 5-year planning grants. So that's what I've heard. I'm sure there's another reason, but that's the story I'm hearing.
And Chris Castillion, who's the new director of GOCO, has been going around the state because, a lot of these large conservation projects and trail projects both take years and years to make happen. And so, without the administration being able to be, pushed out a certain amount of time, they're worried that at least from the GOCO's staff side, they're worried they can't make a funding commitment that could take you 5 to 10 years without making sure that the division is still in place. So that's what from the GOCO director.
Okay. That's good. That would be a good reason, and thanks for the explanation.
I don't know if there's another, so.
Really briefly, since we're editing a little, I think it'd be worth adding recital stating the growth rate of the state of Colorado and the anticipated growth rate. That this is part of why this is so important, is we just have accelerating demand and pressure on available open spaces. Thanks.
Graham, any comments, thoughts? Greg? Hawk? Wayne?
I would make a motion to approve for the Board of County Commissioners as amended and discussed.
I'll second it.
Okay, I just want to, at least for the public, to note one of the comments in our packet. Since 1996, GOCO funds have supported 18 Pickens County open space and trails projects with over $46 million to conserve over 9,000 acres, maintaining our community's agriculture and open space heritage. That's pretty remarkable. $46 million, and Pickens County, through our open space and trails program, has matched GOCO dollar for dollar and contributed over $46 million for these efforts as well. So it's a tremendous partnership we have with GOCO, and anything we can do to continue to support these efforts, I think are very important for us. So let's see, we had the motion, we had a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Kara.
All right, thank you guys.
I'd like to make the same motion for the Open Space and Trails Board.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is just a quick update on the process for the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail Plan. And so we wanted to, yeah, I try to find it. Where?
Isn't that on here?
See it. So we were trying to bring this up on screen, but I'm going to have Lindsay go over the process. We've been working with the Open Space Board and the BOCC to kind of come up with what's next. And so we wanted to make sure on TV we're showing what the next steps are in the public process. It's not finalized by any means, but it is what's on tap for what's coming next.
Well, Fran's going to grab a hard copy because it didn't make it on our drive. But, yeah, Fran.
You saw on the Elmo?
Yeah.
You know how to
So-
set the Elmo, John? Okay, you got it.
Yeah, he's got it. So like Gary said, we're giving an update on the planning for Carbondale to Crested Butte. We are currently, there we go. Oh, here, I can stand up. Public comment has closed, and staff has been working on compiling all the different comments that we received on the first round of public comment. Our goal is right now to take all of those comments, compile them. They will go public on Friday because on the 21st, Open Space and Trails Board will be having a joint or a work session to review and discuss all they have heard to date. So the public can look for that starting Friday. It will be on our website. Then looking to the future, there will be a joint meeting between the Open Space and Trails Board and the Board of County Commissioners in January. Both of those meetings will be televised, both that work session on December 21st as well as the joint meeting on January 16th. Both of those meetings are really for the boards to have an opportunity to review all the public information we've received to date and give staff direction at that January meeting on how to proceed with a draft plan. The goal would be then to have a draft plan come back to both boards in March prior to any public release. And once the plan is released, then go through another round of public comment. A little bit of that's to be determined, but it'll depend on when the plan is released and the different locations that are available for to have a meeting for the public. With the goal then of gathering all that comment again and bringing it back for adoption sometime in mid-2018. On the Crested Butte side, they are currently, most of their alignment is laid out. They have a couple gaps to finish ground truthing in the spring. They have started their natural resource studies with their Forest Service staff. A lot of that is complete. They'll be finishing a little bit of that in the spring. So they are, I would say, I guess they'll be ready when we are to draft a plan together. Does anyone have any questions about where we are currently with the schedule?
Rachel?
I don't have a question, but I would just mention that I anticipate not being here on March 6th. I don't know if that would anticipate your plans, but I'll be at the National Association of Counties.
Wayne?
That is, yeah.
I just had one question, and the next two work sessions will be televised. Will they also be recorded and posted on the website?
Yes. Yes, they will.
Steve?
I also will not be here on March 6th.
Okay.
I'll be at National Farmers Union Convention.
Perfect. Got plenty of time to reschedule.
I will be here.
What, do you have an agenda set for the December 21st work session with the Open Space and Trails Board?
Not yet. That's being worked on, and it will be released on Friday.
Will there be other topics besides the Crystal River Valley Trail?
Not on that work session.
So what I would suggest or pose to the Open Space and Trails Board when you have that work session is to rather than, and I'm sure you probably won't be doing this, but rather than getting into any specifics, is to perhaps revisit the biodiversity plan that we've approved with the voters' approval, and to really talk about values and use the values that you've come up with as a framework, as a lens that we could all utilize as we move forward in terms of looking at all the comments and all the opportunities and all the different options, because of course for the most part, and we just got the package for the comments, but the comments I've received and up to date that I've looked at, it seems like you've got two different sides. You've got either people who are supportive option A or supportive option B. And of course, the way Open Space presented this with our consultants was to break this entire corridor up into 11 different segments, with the idea that some segments may be working on one side of the river and other segments may work on the other side of the river. So, we haven't seen that, at least to date, and there may be some comments, but it seems like people have sort of taken either one side or the other side. And so if you think about values in a biodiversity program and look at all these segments, I think that will help frame discussions in terms of which segments might be appropriate for one side of the river, which segments on the other side of the river. And I think that when we have our joint meeting, that will be really valuable for us to have that discussion as we go forward. Wayne?
The other thing that we've talked about on that agenda for the 21st is to focus on more information needed to staff, giving staff, based on the public comments, on our own comments of what we might need to make an informed decision that hasn't been presented yet. I mean, there's been a lot of information presented, but based on comments, there's some, there may be some missing links or further information that we could get from staff before we meet jointly then.
Can I just add to that, Judge?
Don't forget your mic.
Just adding to Wayne's comment, the whole idea of the work session is not to make any decision. The whole idea of the work session is to give direction as we talk about all the issues, costs, biodiversity, all of those things. And, it does say give staff direction on January 16th, but that's the purpose of, and the significance of that is, as you know, this is the first open space meeting of all 5 of us based on all of the input to date, consultants, comments, etc. So that's the purpose. And we're being interactive with staff about an agenda.
Good. Other comments or questions? Greg?
As you're moving forward, I hear about option A and option B. I've seen comments that say option C or D, and I think we should certainly make sure people understand that we're looking at everything. Option C being maybe another less expensive option on the highway side and the west side. People have expressed concern about the numbers on that, so that'll have to come up. And option D is no. And I've heard that from several people. I think we can't just assume it's option A or option B at this point. So going forward, I think C and D need to be looked at seriously until we all have a chance to look at it.
And I'd hold off on major discussion of certain pieces of the trail until we can get, you guys. The goal is to make sure you guys read all the public comments, not just the ones that were emailed directly to you, because we got over 500 survey comments, and those are critical to the understanding of what the entire public truly feels too. So, and that's going to be out to the public. We're going to get that out as the packet goes out on Friday, so that'll all be online too, so everyone will be able to review it. And so, the work sessions are great to have discussions, like we said, but there's pieces of this that will be, plenty of time to discuss that.
If I could just finish off on that, this packet in front of me here, if they can see this, for the public, is the compilation so far of the public comment. So to me, this is indicative of a healthy process.
Yeah, correct.
Howie?
Lindsay, my comments are back to you for a question, for clarification. At the bottom of the timeline, we talk about TBD 2018 public comment due. What is that, what you're referring to specifically?
That would be public comment on the draft plan.
On the draft plan. And that's the draft plan that's been discussed up until that date.
Correct. Just similar to all of our planning processes, our draft plans go back out for public comment.
And then what do you mean by updates to draft plan?
So after public comment on a draft plan, then we usually take all of that comment, update that draft plan one more time, then take that plan back as like a final plan for the boards to adopt. And often during adoption, that can be tweaked a little bit further.
Is there any expectation that our plan has to be, our timeline is tied to the timeline from the Crested Butte side?
I mean, really, if anything, they've been tied to us. So, I mean, the goal of this plan was that it was a Carbondale to Crested Butte trail plan. Right now, we are, for many reasons, the ones that are taking more time and figuring out what our side of that plan may look like.
There's no deadlines for, when we will talk to GOCO about the planning grant and everything else. There's, obviously there's going to be officially a deadline sometime in the future, but right now, GOCO's been very welcoming to allowing the process to continue.
Yeah.
Well, in truth, we've been focusing primarily on the Carbondale to Redstone and up to McClure Pass sections. And we're not focused so much on the trail between there and Crested Butte. Can that part of it have its own application or own communication with GOCO? It's independent of ours, or vice versa?
I mean, the way that our planning grant was structured was that it was a joint planning effort between both sides. So with the current structure of that planning grant, if we were to have a plan that represents that, we'd be working together on it. Otherwise, it's essentially two separate efforts.
And that's a bridge to cross as we move forward.
Okay.
I mean, right now they're still working through it. I mean, the reality of the National Forest on that side has a lot of the routes already in their travel management plan. So there are certain parts of it that are easier than this side where we don't have that yet. And that's why we're still trying to figure out where or how this can happen. So, in the end, the goal is, and we've been keeping Crested Butte and Gunnison County up to date on all of this. So, in the end, let's see where we're at sometime next year. And then we could, if they're ready to go and we're not, we'll figure that out. But let's cross it then.
So one final question on that same point. Is there a soft date that GOCO's working around of submission?
Yeah, I mean, really, we had 2 years from the start.
Which was when?
I would say right now we are 4 months behind, but I've already spoken with GOCO about that, and they're supportive of that, and they just want to wait until it's really the end of this year, early next, so end of 2018, early 2019, but they're supportive of us doing a thorough process and a good job and understand why that takes more time.
Okay, thanks.
Good question.
Steve?
Given that this is one of the most important decisions that I have faced in my 5 years on the board, and it's certainly the one that has been the most controversial in terms of the public getting riled up about it and providing comments. I have a problem with the March 6th meeting, which to me is a very important meeting, and 2 of our board can't be there, and I would just ask that we explore a different date that we could do that on.
We'll definitely
so we
change
could
it.
all of us could be there.
We're going to make sure that all 10 are available on a date. And let's get through the next 2. It's really hard to start putting dates on all this. People like to see where we're going with it, and it's hard to put dates on it, but let's see where we get to between the joint meetings with the BOCC and Open Space Board when you guys discuss what kind of direction you want us to put into the plan, and then we'll come up with a plan completion date.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that all 10 members can
Okay, thank you.
be attended.
So just to clarify then, we'll update that to a TBD and then send this out to our email list and post it on our website for the most recent up-to-date schedule for the public.
All right, great. Any other questions or comments for Lindsay? in the process going forward. No? Great. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, this is the fun part. I'll run through this relatively quickly in case you guys have more board comments. But this has been kind of how come it's not? Oh, how do you get that? Elmo. Oh, there we go. Great. And I have start off that, behind me is really the people that make this happen. Just the person that gets to speak about it. And I'm really kind of proud of what we've been able to accomplish this year. And yes, this has been a very challenging year. There's obviously, 2 planning processes that definitely have generated, 3 planning processes that have generated a lot of public feedback. But we looked at that as successful because we're engaging the public and trying to engage the public, and you see the public comments you have received on this project and every other project that we're finding new ways to engage them. And so one of the things I wanted to start with was the bridge at Lazy Glen. This has been in the works for well over 10 years, and it's been a goal of the Board of County Commissioners and the Open Space Board to find a way to connect the Lazy Glen Mobile Home Park to the Rio Grande Trail. Because right now, they had to go out onto the highway. And being able to, end up purchasing the property across the river from them to be able to make this happen is an enormous win for this community. There's over 300 residents that live there, and they still have my map I created in 2004 showing this potential. They still have that in their little community center thing. And so, making this a reality, and it is open now. The trail will be completely finished in early 2018. We're going to have a really nice ribbon cutting with the community out there. So, this is a huge accomplishment, and this community really thanks you. And I think they're not the loudest, and they might not come out and fully say it, but from the use and the amount of people that have come out and been watching this, this is truly a thank you to Pitkin County Open Space and Trails and the BOCC for making this happen.
Can I just comment real quick?
Sure.
Gary, I want to thank you because I remember walking that many, many, many years ago to try and figure out where we were going to put the alignment because the hillside on the other side was so steep. So this is amazing, and I know they're appreciative, and to have access to the open space on the other side. And now I look forward to open space and trails and healthy rivers and streams, maybe looking at some river restoration projects in that stretch.
That's coming up.
Perfect.
I would welcome you looking at the possibility of having community garden space for the residents of Lazy Glen over across the bridge at some location.
They're
I
actually
think that would be a terrific amenity for them to be able to have a community garden.
One of the things is when we were doing the management plan process, they're actually, where the bridge has landed, they're looking at redoing that whole area and potentially putting the community garden there. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to work with this community over time, but right now their focus, they believe more people will participate if it's on this side of the bridge. So that's kind of their choice. But anyway.
Can you just describe the park, the river park?
I will.
The size, okay, that they can access. It's not just getting to the trail. It's a park
On the other side.
on the other
That's
side.
coming up. So the next piece, big success on the Glacier open space trailhead. The parking was completed this year. We took a situation where the deputies were calling us daily about, between 2 and 3 dozen cars parking on the road and parking all the way down the road towards ACES. And the neighbors were pretty upset about the fact that, where are you going to put all these people? And the greatest piece of this is, through a purchase through a neighbor, and then, funding from Open Space and Trails and also from Eagle County, we were able to make that purchase happen. And then this year we built this parking lot. Huge success, huge amount of use. We worked with the adjacent neighbor And I think I just shared with you all a letter from them thanking us because we went out of our way and made sure that the parking lot was screened well. And we spent the money to make it happen, and we did it right, and the neighbor really appreciates that. And the community, we don't have a parking issue anymore. We solved it. And so for now, this is a really good win. Prince Creek Trail construction, we went through the process on the Prince Creek piece. You can see it on there. You know, we got an amazing amount of volunteers to come out on this. We were shocked. And so, you know, basically these volunteers, they built a lot of our bridges in their shops, and they came out. We had the Carbondale High School football team, the Basalt High School football team. It's really impressive. We thought this would be a 2-year project. It got completed in 1 summer, which was just out of control to see that many people show up. So that's a huge success. Little things that we've done is also Jaffe Park. We redid the parking to create a trail by the river and to more identify what the parking was, not just a bunch of rocks. Basalt Trailhead was a huge success. We did with a partnership with the town of Basalt and put a shade structure in and really redefined the parking. And obviously, new signs. I'm going to give you a very good stat on how many. I think we spent about 235 hours this year, man hours, on installing signs, which is pretty impressive. And so, you know, the Rio Grande, I don't even know if, hopefully some of you noticed that we made some pretty significant safety improvements, especially at road crossings on the Rio Grande Trail. North Star, we redid the signage. And we have totally updated all the North Star signage, new spotting scopes that you can actually see something through. The old spotting scope got to the point where you could look at it, maybe with one eye see something, but not. So all of that's been changed, and this new signage has been, it's really, you know, we've been working with our partners, the City of Aspen and ACES, on the content for those signs, and so it's been a really big hit. And obviously, everyone knows about the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail. The outreach is started and will be continuing, ongoing. You can start to see some of the numbers there. You know, 526 survey responses. You know, we've had 6 public meetings already with over 500 people in attendance. People are aware of this. They are participating. So that's been good. And Castle Creek is, you know, we have the community engaged on this one. We're working through, you know, the city is also doing affordable housing in this location and trying to work together to create a safer way through this Castle Creek corridor for motorists, road bikers, and walkers, and not the road bikers. And so we're going through that process now, and that'll be coming back in early 2018. Acquisitions. The Brunson parcel up the Crystal, right next to the subdivision of Crystal River Country Estates, just kind of adds more land to the National Forest lands. It's, you know, to make sure everyone knew, we already had a trail easement on this property. This property was purchased to add 6.3 acres more of habitat and avoid another home on the edge of that habitat, which has been identified as pretty critical for the bighorn in that area. St. Jude's closed the end of last year, but we're still working on the second piece of St. Jude's. That's a parcel right outside of the town of Basalt. It basically halts the Basalt urban growth boundary and maintains a very historic ranch in that area. Roland and Mamie, very cool. I'll go on record to say it's the last parcel up
Until the next
the Hunter Creek Valley that has been extinguished. And so we really should be proud of that. And everyone around this table and staff and community has worked so tirelessly to protect the Hunter Creek Valley. I hope this is it. Please let it be it, because, you know, it's really kind of cool that was done. And then we also acquired a trail easement from Dorothea Ferris and Doug Ferris along Prince Creek to potentially one day link all the trails to Highway 133. Agriculture, big deal. This year we saw Lazy Glen and Wheatley and just come alive. We didn't expect this. And so through the lessees on this property, Cooper Means on one and Martin and Company on the other, you know, some incredible facts just to give you out there is, you know, from Lazy Glen, they gave over 1,250 pounds of poultry to restaurants/events and 150 pounds to the farmers market. So lamb, 630 pounds. It's expected to double next year. Mushrooms, 120 pounds. And mushrooms don't weigh much, so that's a lot of mushrooms. And so, and that's just from there. So veggies-wise, from the CSA, the Community Supported Agriculture on that property, a mile, 5280, 100 pounds of veggies. And, to market, that was 3,000 pounds, restaurant 2,000, and they donated also 1,500 pounds to local shelters and stuff like that. And so Wheatley is an amazing piece. I never realized this. 35,000 pounds of potatoes per acre. So that's 385,000 pounds of potatoes total off of that property. That property hasn't been produced for potatoes in I don't know how long, but that is an insane amount of potatoes to take off of that property, which is really cool.
When they're in bloom, they're gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, and that's one of the pictures on your right is when it is in bloom. It's just amazing. And so, the community, these are very visible properties, and the community, at least from what I've heard, has been amazed at what is going on there. They're just amazed at what people can do if given the land to do it. And so that's a huge success. And I really thank, the staff that made this happen and how they work to get these from management plan to leased is just, it's an amazing amount of work, and it's happening. So stewardship, we do a ton of work, and, looking at the amount of stewardship we do throughout the county, I mean, looking at, just doing our typical property management, we spend over 2,200 hours of staff time doing it. Just weed control is almost 900 hours on weed control throughout the county on open space program. Our dog poo and trash route, we spend a lot of time, almost 450 hours on that one. And, as I said, the sign installation, we're doing it. One of the pictures on your lower right is the Habitat Improvement Project on Hunter Creek with the City of Aspen and ACES with support from the Forest Service. We masticated about 60 acres up in Hunter Creek, and that was areas added to where we did the burn in 2016. And these are areas that are closer to the development areas, so pretty significant improvement of habitat going on in the Hunter Creek Valley. And the middle photo on the top is our great partnership with Pickens County Public Works. There's big rocks that fall off there. That thing is perched on the Rio Grande Trail. And so figuring out ways to get the rocks off the trail and off the road down below has been a great partnership. And basically all in the day's work, I just want to kind of show you what our ranger program has to deal with. They deal with rescues, and they train with mountain rescue and, obviously the fire departments. One of the cool things this year, we found a famous bike. I don't know if you saw that in the paper. We found Joe DeSalvo's wife's bike that he was given to by Lance Armstrong. We found it in the middle of the forest and returned it. They were so pumped. And so those are the fun pieces. We do a ton of outreach. But one of the tougher ones that we're going to have to deal with is homeless camps. The camp cleanups, we have 51 transient camps that we've cleaned up this year alone, and it's a serious issue that I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of. It's a lot of ranger time. It's going to be a lot of deputy time. The deputies have to help us respond to all of these. We can't really respond on our own. So, what's happening is growth in the valley, growth of the amount of users on the trail. I mean, we get more accidents, swiftwater rescues, and you name it. And luckily, the rangers are working really closely with other public enforcement agencies and fire and mountain rescue to participate in it. So, and then we do a ton. This year, we have done a ton of monitoring, and it was really cool what we found. Those cameras show up. On Sky Mountain Park, we got bears. We knew they were there, and we've gotten a couple pictures in here and there, but when you really put the cameras up, you see it. The moose on North Star, they're all over the place now, and so they are really out there. We're going to see it, and it's probably going to become an issue on the river eventually sometime. We'll see what happens because the moose and people don't always get along so great, but we'll see what happens. That's really cool. We got a cool picture of a marten on that. But, you know, all of our properties, the goal of this is to make sure everyone understands this is not the easiest stuff to always show. We put a ton of these wildlife shots on, you know, Facebook and get that out there, but the monitoring piece, the amount of transects, the vegetation transects we do, the wildlife monitoring we do, you know, leads into the next piece, and that's restoration and interpretive plans. We got one at Lazy Glen. That's why I told you guys hold out. We're working on one right now. If you see in that bottom left corner, that will be finalized in the next month or two, and hopefully we'll be able to start implementing that in 2018. And it's really cool because that was part of the management plan, was to create a, you know, where can we restore places on there, where can we educate, and where can people use. And so that plan is coming up. You know, we're finishing that up and getting that implemented in 2018. We're also going to be doing, I didn't have a good fancy picture of it, but Sky Mountain Park, those old ponds that were created by the former owner, and the meadow that's in pretty poor shape, we're coming up with a full restoration plan. We've been monitoring the conditions before. We have a soil monitoring station with Aspen Global Change Institute out there, and to see if we do restoration with natives, do we actually create more soil moisture? So, and then we got the reality TV show. People love this. This has been awesome. That snow picture is, you know, people asked us, come on, go up there, shovel her out. And you're like, no, I can't. We can't involve ourselves in that. But people are watching this. This has been a really popular piece. Happily, they produced this year, and they fledged, and people really got into it. And so that will continue. It's a really cool piece. And then here's our staff in action, or not so much in action, but this is really one piece for me is I really do appreciate the amount of staff we have is so much different than 15 years ago, but we're getting things done. We're impacting people's lives, and we're making Pitkin County one of the best places to live. So, you know, really the quality of life has gotten good, and these people care, and they really, you know, even when they're staring at the eclipse, they did it on North Star. So it's, you know, how perfect is that? And so with that, I close, and I thank you all. Look,
I'd like to say congratulations.
That's amazing.
For Goodyear.
It should be noted that the new Open Space and Trails calendars are out. They are available where, Gary?
They are available everywhere. There's some in the library. There's some at,
Post office?
Yeah, there's post office, city hall. They're at the Forest Service office. They're at the Pitkin County office in Basalt. We put them at town halls, city halls, anywhere that will take them. We're going to put big boxes of them so you can get them, or just give us a call or come by the Forest Service office, and we're happy to give you some.
And speaking of the Emma Osprey, this is just a phenomenal picture. Who took this? How was this taken? Do we?
It's on the camera?
Lisa McDonald?
No. Paul Hiltz.
Oh, Paul Hiltz. He's on the Basalt Open Space and Trails board.
Amazing.
And so that was Paul Hiltz. You'd be amazed how many people stand, you know, they stand away.
Yeah.
But they use these incredible zoom lenses, and, you know,
really
Lisa
cool.
McDonald's taking some phenomenal pictures. Obviously, that one's just too good not to put on
Oh,
the
it's
cover.
great. It's great.
Janet's picture of the rainbow trout is awesome.
Awesome.
That is really,
phenomenal.
really neat. Thank you.
So thank you all, Open Space and Trails Board trustees. You guys put in an inordinate amount of time for the benefit of our citizens. Continue to do all these projects from conservation easements and ag programs and trails and restoration. So
why it's my
thank
job.
you so much. And certainly for the staff, Gary and your staff, they do a tremendous job. Just thank everybody for all your hard work.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
One more time.
Yeah.
So let's see, with that, we conclude our joint meeting. Open Space continues on somewhere else, and we'll take a short 5-minute break, and then we'll get back to our regular agenda.
Tim, may I bust your table?
mon Dieu, les ramène en séjour vers toi. Rappelons-nous son précepte sacré. Son précepte sacré, ouvrons nos bras à l'enfant égaré. Si la rigueur et la vengeance les font haïr, ta sainte loi, que le pardon, que la clémence, mon Dieu les ramène en séjour vers toi. Que le pardon et la clémence, oh mon Dieu, les ramène vers toi. Mon Dieu, les ramène en séjour vers toi, en séjour vers toi, les ramène en séjour, mon Dieu, vers toi. Home, no more home to me, whither must I wander? Hunger, my driver, I go where I must. Cold blows the winter wind over hill and heather, thick drives the rain, and my roof is in the dust. Loved of wise men was the shade of my roof tree. The true word of welcome was spoken in the door. Dear days of old, with the faces in the firelight, kind folks of old, you come again no more. Home was home then, my dear, full of kindly faces. Home was home then, my dear, happy for the child. Fire and the windows bright glittered on the moorland. Song, tuneful song, built a palace in the wild. Now when day dawns on the brow of the moorland, lone stands the house and the chimney the place of old. Spring shall come again, calling up the moorfowl. Spring shall bring the sun and rain, bring the bees and flowers. Red shall the heather bloom over hill and valley. Soft flow the stream through the even flowing hours. Fair the day shine as it shone on my childhood. Fair shine the day on the house with open door. Birds come and cry there and twitter in the chimney, but I go forever and come again no more.
Thank you. Okay, we are still in a special meeting from this morning, and we are looking at individual consideration items. These are emergency resolutions with the confirmatory reading on December 20th, and we'll have a quick explanation why these are emergency resolutions.
We just didn't get the meeting on today's date noticed in time to be a public hearing.
Okay, so it's just a question of noticing, but we need to do this because it's related
We need to have the budget
statutory.
adopted before December 15th by state statute.
By state statute, great, thank you. So we'll take these one at a time then. The first is an emergency resolution summarizing revenues and expenditures for each fund and adopting a budget for Pickens County, Colorado for the calendar year 2018.
So this first resolution shows the total revenue budget and the total expenditure budget for each county fund, along with the transfers between funds, and then whether the fund is adding to the surplus or the fund balance or using surplus accumulated in prior years. The total budgeted revenues for all Pickens County funds are $115,332,842, and the total budgeted expenditures for all county funds are $126,650,469. So that's the first resolution, and again, that is to adopt the budget for Pickens County.
Okay, questions?
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, yes?
Just to add on to the nature of the emergency resolution as being one that is more about deadlines than, quote, an emergency, as we normally would think about it. I would just want to emphasize that we've had a significant number of public hearings and public meetings on these budget numbers before. So it's not coming at us as an unknown emergency. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Next is a emergency resolution appropriating sums of money to the various funds for Pickens County, Colorado for the 2018 budget year.
So the second resolution takes the expenditure budget for each fund and appropriates it. That gives us the authority to go ahead and spend those monies that are set aside in the county budget. And again, the total expenditures for the appropriation are $126,650,469 for all county funds.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, further discussion?
I want to just add to that we're doing this confirmatory reading will be on the 20th, so next Wednesday at our regular board meeting.
That's correct.
And that will be a public hearing at that time?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Okay, any other further questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And last is an emergency resolution levying general property taxes for the year 2017 to help defray the cost of government for Pickens County, Colorado, and its special districts for the 2018 budget year.
So this is my item. So you have the backup here, which shows for each of the funds to which we are levying a mill to bring in property tax revenue: the general fund, road and bridge fund, human services fund, TV and FM translator fund, healthy community fund, open space and trails fund, and then also the Pickens County Library Fund, Aspen Ambulance District Fund, Twining Flats GID Fund, and Redstone Ranch Acres GID Fund. The mill levy calculations this year were done according to Tabor. Tabor was the most restrictive form of revenue that we have to follow. And then the 5.5% statutory requirement was also checked, as well as the Home Rule Charter's revenue restriction. But Tabor prevailed in all cases where it was required to be checked, and so therefore you will see where it's needed, we take a temporary mill levy reduction in order to preserve the original levy and protect it, so that if the revenue restriction goes back up, then we don't have to, we can just basically reduce the amount of mill levy credit. So in sum, the total property tax that this will generate for Pickens County funds is $28,068,389. I forgot my glasses, sorry.
Question?
Yes.
Where it says temporary mill levy reduction on the one line, and then it says current year refund, the public's not actually going to get a refund check.
No.
But what they're getting is actually a reduction in their property tax.
Correct.
Based on the mill levy reduction. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So basically the gross mill levy is the amount that we have protected, and the current year refund brings it down to the amount that Tabor allows us to collect.
I just wanted to make that
Right.
point in case any members of the public here, they see that they're getting a refund, and then they say, well, when's the check going to be in the mail, kind of a question, that to understand that it's just money that they won't have to pay, that they would
Right,
have
so
had
we
to
never
pay.
collected in the first place.
Yeah.
I would accept a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second, any further discussion?
I'd like to just thank staff for all their efforts. And now I know you start doing the budget for 2019, the 21st of December? So we'll be with you on that one too. So thank you guys for all the work that you do.
Well, and a big thank you also for all of the different section leaders, department heads, and all the other staff, because there are a lot of county employees that are involved in the process who have put a lot of attention and hours in making sure that they're making the very best possible use of the resources we have available.
We thank that. We thank all of them, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we have got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, Connie. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you.
So real quick question, when do you start working on next year's budget?
Yeah, the 21st of December.
First week of January.
We first have to put together the complete budget book, which will then be available on the county's website and is submitted to the state, submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association.
Jeez.
And then we'll start planning for the 2019 budget.
Well, actually, we were already planning this morning because we were looking at the calendar,
That's true.
the
Yes,
date that we
were.
would be adopting it next year.
Oh, my God. No rest for the wicked.
We
as
know
they
you
say.
enjoy this.
We do.
Okay, we're a little ahead of ourselves for our special meeting as the Board of Social Services. Is everybody here? Or should we take a break?
But hopefully he'll arrive. If he doesn't, we'll cover.
Who we,
Got a break. Whatever you want.
who we missing?
Matt, the interim AFS manager.
All right, well, let's wait. We'll do,
Okay.
we'll do future agendas.
There he is. He's here.
Wait, he's here.
Everybody's here? Yeah. Okay, so again, we're already in a special meeting, but I would need a motion, accept a motion to go in as the Board of Social Services.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And this is our third quarter of 2017 update with the Department of Human Services.
Hi, I'm Nan Sundin, Human Services Director, and this is a quarterly meeting of the Board of Social Services that fulfills a statutory requirement of yours to approve the expenditures in Human Services and to approve the payrolls. And I've asked Kelly to come up because she's our finance specialist, and while Connie is still sort of our lead, we will be transitioning in the next year, and you will see more of Kelly and less of Connie at our table. And she will be very busy starting that budget that you were referring to a few minutes ago. So thank you for coming up. Okay, so just a reminder that for Human Services, we're talking about programs such as economic assistance, child welfare and adult protection, child support enforcement, TANF or Colorado Works, Child Care Assistance Program, long-term care support, and child care licensing. A lot of the services we now perform in-house, but we still contract with Garfield County for child support enforcement and child care licensing. We're not really going to be talking about either of those items today, but we do bring Garfield County in once a year to give you an update on child support enforcement, and we'll be doing that next spring. Okay, so Connie's going to talk first about the expenditures, and your obligation at the end is to approve or deny the expenditures. Informal action.
So the chart in your packet on page 2, or also on the screen, shows some of the different program areas and both the state and federal revenue and then the expenditures associated with those programs. We're looking at the period of January through September, so about 75% of the year. And for admin and economic assistance, you can see that the revenue is right on track. We're doing well for a budgeted revenue. And the expenditures are a bit behind. That's because there were some vacancies at different moments of the year in some positions. So we have some expenditure savings in that program area. On TANF, or also called Colorado Works, we have not had as much use of the program, and so that's why you see that our revenues are much lower. Our expenditures also are lower in this program. For child care, on the other hand, this is a program area where we have a lot of use. Our revenue, you see, we've already received more than our budgeted revenue. That's thanks to Nan's great work in collaborating with other counties, and we were able to purchase $138,000 in allocation from 3 different counties to help supplement what the state gives us for child care. So we are doing well on the revenue side. Our expenditures are tracking higher than budget, even though we did budget fairly aggressively for child care. There is good use of this program, and so we are spending a bit more than budgeted. In child welfare, we are on track, and we expect to be close to the full budget amounts by the end of the year. Adult protection is the next area shown. And in state fiscal year 17, which ended in June of 2017, we had overspent our adult protection allocation by about $35,000. But in the closeout process with the state, we were made whole. So that's good news that we were covered for the amount that we went over our allocation in adult protection. And then the last area shown is child support enforcement. We are behind budget on our over-the-counter reimbursements and grant revenue in that area. All combined, you'll see that our total revenue is at 80% of budget and our total expenditures at 69% of budget. So good results there. Property tax, of course, comes in just about at 100% of budget. For the year end, we used a projection in the 2018 budget that we would finish 2017 with $239,500 in savings or surplus revenue. That was presented in the 5-year plan for the Human Services Fund. And with these results that we're showing here today, I believe we're on track to meet that projection. So we will be on track with our 2018 budget and where we thought we would start the year. And we may actually be a bit better than that. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry, that number's not on here. For the total fund at the very bottom, we budgeted a deficit of $196,384. That was our budget. We were planning on using fund balance. However, currently, through September, we have a surplus of $181,000. So we're actually doing $378,000 better than budget. As we go through the year, we do think that we'll be spending down some of that as the last quarter's expenditures come in. And so we projected that that ending number, that ending surplus would be $239,500 by the end of the year. And we think we will definitely meet that number and possibly be a bit better than that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't make that clear.
Rachel?
2 questions, and thank you. 2 questions, as others have said, thank you for the work on this. Is there actually a line on the child care that shows where the new purchased dollars come from? I was just kind of looking at child care. There's state and federal revenue and expenditures, surplus deficit, but where do we show the incoming purchase of dollars?
Yeah, this table doesn't break it out into that much detail. It's very much a summary table with all of the different parts combined.
We're planning on bringing CCAP as a whole to the 4th quarter meeting when we can really look at a full year expenditure and number of cases and be able to tell you a better story about what's happening with CCAP.
Okay, because I guess what I was confused at is it looked like there's still a deficit of $94,000, and I was just kind of wondering, is that the number that's being covered by the purchase dollar from other counties, or is that a deficit remains after the purchase dollars?
Yeah, so the $94,000 deficit is what we budgeted for the child care. And remember that some of the deficits within the budgets are covered by the property tax, by the mill levy, and then also by a transfer from the general fund.
Okay.
So there are program areas where we budget a deficit, and then those additional revenues make up the difference. So the state allocation that we had with our budgeted expenditures, what we were planning on spending on child care, left us with that $94,000 deficit.
Okay. And then the purchase dollars help close that gap.
Right. So currently through September, we do have a deficit, but it's only $2,600. So far better than what we were looking at in the budget. $92,000 better than what we were budgeting.
Although we still have the final quarter to
We
cover.
still have the final quarter, right.
Anybody else got dollars for sale out there?
I've already cast a net out to a few of our friends who seem to be underspending, and we'll see how we do.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
We'll actually be okay for the end of the year. Since we are in the middle of the state fiscal year, the state will be covering all of our expenditures because we get covered through the year.
Okay.
It's a matter of what we would maybe need to pay back at the end of the year, end of the state fiscal year. So for the rest of the county's calendar year, 2017, we're doing all right.
We're doing all right.
And we'll be, and hopefully we can also all follow CCI and legislation, because there is a movement to push the governor for release of more funds for CCAP.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of what's showing as, quote, a surplus right now. I've heard others call it should be considered a reserve for the bad years. But there's a lot of knives and forks coming out to cut that budget up. So we'll have to see where that goes. And the last question is just for clarification. Are the dollars fungible between these different programs? So when we look at a total expenditures loss, surplus, it's accurate? Can we move money around between those different programs as needed?
On a county level, with county dollars, yes.
Okay.
But on a state level, we cannot draw down. There are some allocations that we can transfer funds between and some that we can't.
Okay.
So it's more rigid as far as what we're drawing down from the state.
Okay. But is it the TANF reserves that are more flexible
Yeah.
to be able to use for other programs?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thanks. I was just kind of wondering in terms of how we totaled it up. Thank you.
Steve? I want to make sure that the federal revenue is behind for both TANF and the child support. And I want to make sure that we are actually going to get that money. I don't trust the federal government for anything these days, but maybe the money's already at the state and just hasn't been passed down to the counties, or where does that stand?
Well, with TANF, we have to use it. They won't. It's based on our usage, so it's based on our number of cases and the number of people that are being served. So if those numbers are down, we will not draw down the full amount of our allocation.
For TANF, we are using TANF to help pay for our benefits outreach specialist because she's really reaching out to people who qualify for TANF food and Medicaid. So we expect that we'll be able to draw down more than we have in a long time and possibly get to our reserves, which is just sitting there waiting for us to tap it. In terms of child support enforcement, it's the same. So as Garfield pulls the money down and gets incentives, we pay it directly to Garfield. So it's really sort of in real time that we get the money. Does that help?
In the end, it all balances out where it's supposed to be.
Hope it has so far. Knock on wood. Right.
Okay, we're going to move on to quarterly payroll.
Okay, thank you guys for coming up. I'm going to ask Sam to come up. Put in below the correct numbers.
Great.
You wanna?
Did we have to adjust that one too?
I did both of those, and
I
then
think that got adjusted, just this one.
it looked like it was adjusted on mine. Oh well, okay.
Hi, I'm Sam Landercasper. I'm the Economic Assistance Manager here at Pickens County. First thing I'd like to call our attention to on this table is I had accidentally used in the third quarter, year-to-date 2017, for childcare. I had used that number that we had seen on Connie's previous sheet. This number, the 161,703.19, are the actual expenditures for childcare assistance to providers. So that's the money that's actually being paid for the care. As they mentioned, some of the other Colorado Works money that's drawn down is for the BOS position. So what we're looking at for the third quarter under the CCAP, there is the money that's been paid directly to providers in the area here for actual childcare services. So starting at the top, looking at aid to the needy disabled, we did see a big decrease after 2015, but we have gone up a bit since 2016. This caseload is relatively small. It's a fairly intensive program as far as amount of work for a customer to put in for the amount of benefits that they receive. So we're not quite sure why we've seen that decline. But typically the folks who are getting this are waiting for a Social Security disability determination. So we might have seen some folks who got approved for that or were denied, which would cause them to drop off those payrolls. Childcare, as we've mentioned a few times already, we're seeing significant increases. We have even seen an increase from the last quarter to this quarter. We attribute that to the addition of some new cases between when we started this year up until now. We've added 10 additional households, so we're up to 35 cases right now active in the CCAP program. Our old age pension is
just to put that in context. About a year and a half ago, we had 5 cases. So it's
I remember us being around 13.
Right. So exciting news is that we're serving families and children in need and keeping them safe during the day and helping with early education. And the challenge is the cost goes up. So that's why we're planning on bringing to you an end-of-year analysis of our expenditures and to give you some options for how to move forward with CCAP.
great. And so we have seen a decrease in the old age pension over the last couple of years, but if we look at the previous quarter comparison, we can see that we are back to increasing that amount. So we've been doing a lot of outreach activities. We're working closely with the Senior Center, so we think we're seeing that reflection in the increased expenditures in the old age pension. LEAP. No real change. Of course, that's because LEAP season's just getting started right now. It starts in November 1st and runs through April. So typically we wouldn't expect to see much for any extra LEAP expenditures in this quarter.
Can you say what LEAP is and
Sorry.
try to avoid acronyms?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
LEAP is the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. If you qualify based on your income, a portion of your heating expenses can be paid through this program. They also offer repair services if a qualified LEAP recipient has an issue with their furnace going out or heating system not working. So we expect in the next quarter to see that number going up. We're working on doing some outreach now so that folks are aware that this program is open and available to them. Looking at Colorado Works, or TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. We are down from 2016, but as we mentioned, I think we mentioned the last 2 times we've been here, when we opened up this department, we only had 1 existing case. We are currently up to 5 right now, and we are in the process of enrolling a 6th. So our benefits outreach specialist, as well as a dedicated Colorado Works worker, have really helped start increasing the enrollment for that program. And this program is great from the intensive case management side. So this program can help folks who are trying to go to school get by with their expenses. It also, they have someone to be in touch with in our office who can help put them in touch with employers and other job-seeking resources like that. And finally, our food assistance. We have increased across the board, both from quarter to quarter as well as year to year. No big surprise there. We had a small increase, I think, from the second quarter to the third quarter, but it fluctuates depending on the season we're looking at, but typically a fairly sizable caseload here in Pitkin County.
You don't have Medicaid here. Can you talk a little bit about what open enrollment is like in your office right now?
Yeah, so I'll go over the open enrollment process. Basically, in case people aren't familiar, right now we are in the open enrollment season, which means that people are applying for Medicaid, whether they're looking for strictly Medicaid coverage or looking to purchase a plan through the marketplace, which is where you can buy a plan and possibly get tax credits to help you pay that your monthly premium. Now, in order to purchase a plan and qualify for a tax credit, you have to apply for Medicaid. So we in our office are seeing a significant increase in applications right now, not only for people who are looking to get that coverage moving into the next year, but people who need to get a denial so that they can purchase a plan to avoid the individual mandate penalty on their taxes next year. So we also have a Connect for Health. They are the organization that helps people enroll for these plans. Representative in our office 1 day a week, so that's also increasing our foot traffic. It's pretty hectic in our office right now. We're typically getting in anywhere from between, just my rough estimate looking at the numbers is between 5 to 10 applications a day just for Medicaid, which is a significant increase in traffic.
Rachel?
Yeah, let me ask you a question, because somebody asked me that the other day. But if you were on Medicaid for 2017, do you need to re-enroll or re-qualify, or do they just roll Medicaid folks over?
Anyone who's enrolled in Medicaid is going to receive paperwork to re-enroll in the program. Typically, as long as there are no changes, you can auto re-enroll, but people are required to report changes, and that gives them the opportunity to do so if they'd like to resubmit their paperwork.
Thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Greg?
I have a question about the low-income energy assistance. The situations are always different, I'm sure, but I'm wondering, does CORE ever consult or play a role in this? If there's an opportunity to be energy efficient, I'm sure these people have to be frugal to begin with. Maybe there's an opportunity there for CORE. How's the synergy with them?
We're really lucky to work well with CORE. We met with them pretty much as soon as we opened the office. They were one of the first groups to reach out to us and tell us about their program, look at how it can work with LEAP. So we do, depending on the situation, refer folks to CORE and vice versa. We get referrals from them for LEAP at our office as well.
It's one of CORE's programs to address this is called REACH, and we've substantially increased our budget for the REACH program.
That's great.
Yeah. And then at the bottom here we have the Emergency Assistance Fund, so that's funded through the Healthy Communities Fund. And I just wanted to give everybody a view of what we've spent out this year. It's been a very active year, especially recently, I think, with maybe folks getting back to work being delayed. We've had 33 applications approved for this program and paid out $35,332.10. And you might notice that the number of cases is about the same. However, the amount being paid out has gone up, and we do see that with increasing expenses, we see that the amount needed to help people get over these gaps is going up as well.
So you've actually joined with other emergency assistance groups and are leveraging those dollars?
Yes, we have been fortunate to pair with the Aspen Community Foundation as well as Aspen Family Connections, and part of our outreach is working to get a better handle on who throughout the valley can help assist with this, even if we're just making a referral or partnering with us to help folks with their housing issues that they're facing.
Great. You need a motion on the program payroll?
Yeah, did we run right into that without a motion for expenditures too?
We've taken no motions.
Yeah, so we need both.
So
Would you like to state them?
Wait a second. Are we all done with the payroll comparisons? I mean, do you have any more?
Only this is a chart that Sam created to give you a comparison, just a different view of the benefit comparison expenditures.
Right. So what you're reminding me is we need to have a motion first to approve the expenditures.
Third quarter expenditures.
Third quarter expenditures, okay.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion on that, Steve?
A question on it. In the recommended BOCC action on page 9, it says approve the January through September program expenditures, which is sort of what this chart is showing, but we already approved the January through June expenditures. So just to clarify, is there any glitch on, are we just approving the last 3 months or the whole year up to this date?
That's a good question, because we've been writing it this way for a while. So really, you're approving the third quarter expenditures. Connie presents it to you as January to September 30th. So we need Connie to clarify that. I would say it's third quarter.
She's still in the back of the room.
Connie, help.
So I think the approval would actually be just for the third quarter expenditures, since the others were already approved. However, we did not show you the third quarter expenditures pulled out from the rest, separate from the year-to-date amounts. So if the board would like to have that in the future to make it clearer what they are approving, we can present both.
I think if we're approving the third quarter, we should see the third quarter separate.
The
but
report.
It's also good to see the whole
The
thing.
report kind of is what we're approving then.
Mike.
Or the up-to-date.
Your mic is not on.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's on.
Okay, she couldn't
Yeah.
hear you when you sat back.
My mouth was full.
Okay, so a choice would be to bring in third and fourth quarter in February, or?
What we can do is we can still continue to present the year-to-date, and then also just have a section that shows simply that quarter,
would be
so
great.
that the approval would be clear what's being approved.
Okay, that sounds good. So, but we do have a motion and a second to approve the third quarter to date.
Right.
So any further discussion on that?
Well, for this, it's clear.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And next we need to approve the payroll,
Third quarter
payroll to date.
client
I will
payrolls.
make a motion to approve the third quarter payroll expenses.
Second?
Any further discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for catching that. We'll fix it for the next meeting. So we have just a few updates, mainly for you as you attend meetings on the Front Range and you hear terms. In particular, do you want to talk about the work number?
So one thing we wanted you to be aware of is there is a program called the Work Number, which accesses employment records for participating employers that gives our office the ability to look up payroll information and employment status, which can be really helpful when our customers come in who we need to verify their income. That can be hard for them sometimes. If we can pull it up on the computer, that helps us get that verified and get their case opened up. The Work Number, which is through Equifax, is proposing a rate increase, which there's been some debate at the state level because it impacts the big counties a lot. For us, we don't use it that regularly because not a lot of participating employers are in this area. So as from the research I'd found, we typically do about 6 searches per month, and the rate increase is 50 cents per search. So we're looking at a $3 a month increase. But for counties like Denver or El Paso, that can be in the thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But just so everybody's,
Thousands.
yeah.
Right, substantial, right. Right, and then the other thing, just so that you know, is usually by now, I have signed a TANF CCAP, Child Care Assistance Program, Memorandum of Understanding, that says, that's all about getting our state fiscal year allocation starting July. And I just wanted to let you all know that that process is delayed, and there's some conflict at the state level between the state and some counties around some of the provisions in the MOU, in particular whether or not the state can hold a county accountable and sanction them if the state makes an error and holds us in a position that's more restricted than the federal government. And so they were supposed to deal with it at the state board. Last month it got postponed, and it is set for the first meeting in January. It's quite a challenge at the state level, and apparently the CDHS members have been directed not to talk about it. So I don't really see that it impacts us very much generally, as most things don't, but it has delayed the agreement by which we accept the allocation. So I just wanted you all to know that. It doesn't mean we don't get allocation, it just means we don't have a current MOU.
Interesting.
And child health plan.
Yeah, we kind of already touched on LEAP. So I'm sure most people are aware, but the Child Health Plan, or also known as CHP Plus, is a program that provides Medicaid coverage for children with families who are over the income limit for Medicaid, but below 450% of the federal poverty guidelines. These families pay a small premium to get Medicaid coverage for their children for the year. That program currently sits unfunded, and we've been advised to let people know that without major changes, that coverage will be terminating at the end of January. In Pitkin County, we currently have 157 active CHP Plus cases. Those families are being notified automatically through the system right now that this coverage is ending, and they also receive information on purchasing plans through Connect for Health moving forward. We've also thought it was our duty to try to spread the word as well, and we've been getting that out there at our outreach events, and we've made ourselves available for people to come in and speak with us if they have questions about what's happening. It's just so everybody's on the same page. As of right now, it looks like that program will be ending at the end of January.
But we're not absolutely sure it will.
We are not absolutely sure, no.
Because we're not absolutely sure of anything that's going on at that level.
Right. We want to be prepared for it.
We're
Yes.
prepared for if it ends, and we're prepared for if it doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could comment on that. To the extent there are folks out there who watch the BOCC movies here on Grassroots TV, really call Gardner and Tipton and Bennett and let them know your support for this program. You know, some of the families, the kids, it may be more about wellness and checkups and things like this. Other kids, it's life and death when you talk about cystic fibrosis medicine or type 1 diabetes medicine, things that kids have through no fault of their own. And, you know, the federal poverty level is practically nothing. It has never been sourced or updated in so long. That's why we always talk of percentages of the poverty level. And they don't take into account certainly the high cost of living in an area like this. But to see what the federal government is doing with the tax bill, the Congress, and then saying they can't fund CHIP because we're doing this huge corporate and tax cut to the 1%, it's absurd. And it's really, you know, I personally, I'm sure others feel the same way, have really appreciated the past few years where there wasn't a firehouse spaghetti dinner every other week for a family dealing with massive medical bills that were possibly driving them into bankruptcy. And when you have a child, I think you would sell your soul to get them the medical care, let alone your house or your business. So this is really starting to sink in and to hurt the public. So please take some action and let Tipton and these folks know. And if we haven't, as a board, sent a letter yet specifically about CCHIP, I think we should do that. You know, we're at the point now where we can talk about the 167 families that are served, and I think it's about 75,000 families across Colorado. So I think this would be, you know, really timely again if we have not already sent such a letter.
My understanding is that you have sent a letter that was broader, that included CHIP, as well as funding for federally qualified health centers. Yes. And I have sent this information to Kara in the event that you want to target
just
CHP Plus. And we have information on the Pitkin numbers as well, Eagle and Garfield, and the impact that it will have on our region.
I'd like to send a specific letter because I think this is really critical to families.
What I would suggest, just to be timely, is that the board give direction for a letter, staff drafts it for the chair's signature.
I'm
Yeah,
fine with
I
that.
would agree with that. I don't need to see it later.
Okay,
Please.
great. We'll talk to Kara, the writer. She's excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're running out of time a little bit. Is there anything else that you want to, that
No,
you
I
have a
actually
burning
jumped the gun
desire?
on the outreach, so that we
Okay.
can talk about that next time in the actual quarter it happened.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sam. So Matt, come on up. So this is Matt McGaw, our new interim adult and family services manager. He has been our child welfare supervisor for a year and a half.
2 years.
2 years, and before that, caseworker. And Matt, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First off, I'm excited to transition into the role of manager. I've been a social worker for 12 and a half years. I started out in Garfield County as a child welfare caseworker and have periodically moved into different jobs. I facilitated meetings for families. I was a supervisor in Garfield County for a few years before I made the move to Pitkin County. And most recently, I was instructor for the University of Denver, teaching ethics at the Glenwood location. So that's a little bit about my background.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Or
So
welcome.
this is welcome into
Good to
the
be here.
family.
Thank you.
So this is Matt's first visit to the Board of Social Services. So I told him I'd give him a break and just have him sit right there. And next time he's going to have to tell you everything. But just wanted to let you know that on November 27th, the Child Welfare Allocation Committee changed the formula for child welfare allocation. They pretty much, the state only approved the first 6 months of an allocation because they knew they were going to try to change the formula. So what you have in front of you here is basically simplified what you have on this crazy spreadsheet that's hard to read. But basically, they agreed to option 3 without a floor. 7% with a 7% floor. And what this means is that the way the child welfare block came to us, the formula was 25% was based on demographics, number of children in the community, poverty, that kind of stuff. 40% was related to our program costs, which benefits us dramatically because of the cost of living here, and also benefits other rural mountain areas. And then 35% workload, which also was benefiting us because while our workload may be a little smaller, we have generalists who have to do everything. We don't have units, we don't have specialists, we have generalists who are switching from intake to assessment to family meeting to court. And so we have enjoyed a little bit of a smaller caseload. It doesn't mean that our caseworkers have been not busy. They're super busy. So the new allocation formula is 20% demographics, 30% program cost, and 50% workload. I know some of you got an email from Rose Puglisi from Mesa County who opposed this option and told us that only 7 of the 22 counties on the West Slope gained from this allocation. So likely it's real, and Mesa lost $1 million in their allocation. So we're all hurting a little bit. For us, what it means is a $19,000 reduction. Pretty much, if you can read this spreadsheet, which I'm not going to put up there because it's crazy making, all of the formulas left us at about the same. At about 400,000, exactly. So we continue to work on finding other revenues, and we're looking at, the reason why Matt is interim now is we're really looking at better aligning our workload, looking at whether or not we need to replace the supervisor, and we've actually promoted on an interim basis 2 caseworkers to lead positions, and we're going to see if that helps us both manage our allocation as well manage the workload. So we're in a trial. We're in a trial period. Okay?
Rachel?
Yeah, well, as you were talking about earlier, or maybe it was an earlier discussion this meeting today, about, of course, the state's budget coming up and influence on the JBC and trying to get greater allocations to this general pool.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm wondering if there's a way to, you know, and always somebody has to take the lead, but to total up what those 14, 15 counties lost, and be able to try to use that as a push point towards future increase in allocation. That at the very least it should be increased enough and directed towards these counties that lost money. So I think that we need to make that case going forward of what and there's always strength in numbers. You know, it's this many rural counties that lost. Now, the other kind of question regarding that was, did the change in formula seem to benefit the larger Front Range counties with large population bases? I mean, who were the winners from the change of the formula?
Right. Well, it wasn't the West Slope.
It probably wasn't the Eastern Plains either.
Yeah, I really need to look at it more closely before I jump. You know, I don't think there was a sense in the room that one was gaining, one was losing. There was certainly a sense of, why are we changing the allocation? There's not a big problem.
Yeah.
And it came on the heels of Reggie Bika writing quite a lengthy memo about how we have to get a handle on congregate care, which counties feel like they have, and proposing that we go from an 80-20 model to a 70-30 model, so the counties would pay more if they put children in out-of-home placement. And that kind of colored everything in that meeting.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah.
Right. So that's really what we need to watch more, I think, at this point, because for us, we have one child in out-of-home care. If we have two, that's 100% increase, right? And that's going to take money from our child welfare block. And if we have to pay 30% of a child in a psychiatric setting in the Front Range, that's a lot more money, and so that will impact us. And I think counties were unified in opposing that proposal.
Well, like always, just keep me in the loop so I can know those arguments at CCI.
Will do. We'll be
Thank
watching. Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chad. Almost done. Still think you need a clock in here. I hate to say that. I can't
behind you.
I can't see it. And this has no clock on it, by the way. I need a watch, apparently. Okay, I'll watch your clock. I don't have one either. Just give us this when it's time to go.
I'll be quick. I'm Chad Fedowitz, Manager of Senior Services. On the first page, which is page 7, I think, for your packet, is just the quarterly numbers for the meal program, information assistance, and then I like to add numbers about recreation, education, fitness, and transportation. We're pretty much on par for all these areas. Exercise and fitness goes down in the summer months because people are doing more things outside and hiking and biking. So otherwise, we're pretty much on par with our different programs, and meals continue to grow, which is nice for moving forward. You can go to the next page.
I don't have another page.
You don't have
That's
another
it
page.
for charts.
Oh, no more charts. Okay. Do you have any questions about any of the numbers for different programs at all? Okay.
Do we need a motion on those? They're different from payrolls?
No.
Okay.
No.
Different.
I don't need any more.
There's no statutory obligation. We bring it to you because they're federal dollars, and we want to make sure that you see what we're doing with those dollars.
These are all numbers that we report back to the Area Agency on Aging, which helps fund our programs. I believe I mentioned this last time I met with you all, but starting in January of next year, we will begin serving meals 4 days a week. Starting, it will be on Thursdays, due to transportation already being available via the senior van to the senior center that day. We're also going to be looking at kind of pre and post surveys about food insecurity for seniors that already use our programs, and those are ones we have the easiest access to ask them questions about how they feel about the additional day and how they feel about being food secure or insecure. So we're trying to get a little data to help support our ideas on addressing food insecurity from a senior perspective, which we don't have the greatest, we as Colorado don't have the greatest data on from a senior perspective of food insecurity. So we're hoping that will shed some light for at least our local community by doing it that way. And then transitioning from meals to more of aging well, we had quite a few number of really successful events and programs this last quarter. We had, in conjunction with Eagle County, we had a home fit for seniors in Basalt at the library there, which is more about weatherization, core, Northwest COG was there, a couple other providers talking about how to make your home safe, energy efficient. It was a very good success, and we just had it up here in Aspen last week, another really good success. And we're continuing to reach out and ask seniors in both areas of the counties what type of programs, education or otherwise, would like to see from us or supported by us. So we're continuing to go down that avenue. We finished up a developing consciousness event at the senior center this last quarter, which was a very good success as well. With Aspen Chapel, we brought in a dementia expert from the Front Range, who is a mentor of mine. We had over 75 people in this room listening to her about 3-hour lecture around dementia and Alzheimer's disease. It was a huge success. It really highlighted to all of us staff of the need and desire for education and just awareness about what Alzheimer's disease and the different types of dementias are. So we're excited to do some other additional things in the future for that. And also due to interest at the senior center of participants, we had 2 different lectures on world religions at the senior center, which were a good success. We will do those again, though most likely I have been requested personally to do those instead of who we brought in. So I will be doing those given my other background and training. And then on a side note, and I brought a visual aid per Nan's request, I went to a conference in June, the International Conference on Spirituality and Aging. I presented a research poster. This is a poster of 3 years worth of research prior to, and just the very beginning of my time here at the county, on spiritual care programming for people with dementia. So I brought that just so you could see it. If you're interested or you don't know what a research poster is.
Show it to
We're just going to roll it out for you because we're at the end of our presentation.
That's all I have.
But Charlotte was confused. She thought we had a typo, that it was a research paper, but it was actually a research poster. And
So there it is. This is what I would do at a conference. I would stand there like Vanna White and say, "Any questions?"
What is it saying to you?
What is this?
This poster. What's the key takeaway?
The key takeaway is that even though a person may have dementia or memory loss, that their spiritual needs are just as important as they are to you and I, if they are in fact important to you. That's the takeaway of my research.
Thank you. That's a lot of work.
Thank you, Chad.
Is that posted anywhere?
Yeah, Steve?
I can get you a copy if you want one.
Before you leave, Chad,
Sure.
I just wanted to talk about the Colorado Blueprint for Hunger, which Nan has been working on the task force on drafting the language for that. And part of it is to improve our utilization of SNAP here in Pitkin County.
Yeah.
I think an integral part of it would be the food service that's provided at the senior center for seniors, and
Yes.
and expanding to the Thursday meals is just one part of that.
Right.
That we recognize that there are people here who really need help on their nutrition and meals, and the senior center is providing part of that filling part of that gap for people.
So we don't have time, but maybe in February when I come, I have an overview of the blueprint to end hunger. Steve and I were successful in getting senior centers into the narrative as food producers. Yes. I can tell you that a lot of the focus was on children, and so it was a heavy lift to keep talking about seniors, which are some of our most vulnerable, food insecure people. College students, children, and seniors are statewide the most vulnerable. And so just to end, on January 17th, the governor is going to be presented with the blueprint on hunger and sign resolution. And I'm planning on going, and if there are any commissioners that want to go, I can get you in, because I'm on the inside of that window. And they're looking for elected officials to celebrate.
Send us a little email about that?
I will do. Yep. Sure.
Can I ask another question just associated with food and food banks? How can I get stuff to lift up? I can't get to their hours. Is there another option? Because I know people in the community at this time of year are trying to donate.
Their
window of hours
11
is
to 1, I believe, now Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Oh,
and they're down by the wash area in the same.
The sign on the door was different.
It's actually Tuesday, Wednesday,
it's
Thursday.
Tuesday,
Wednesday, Thursday. But if you have anything, bring it over to us. We'll take it for you.
Okay. I have
Patty,
something I'll drop
we'll
off.
do that for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Just try to get over there.
I've been trying to drop it off, and my hours just haven't coincided because I walk into work and I have too much to carry.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, it is. There are limited hours, and we are planning on taking this blueprint and bringing it back home for a Pitkin as well as a regional discussion about how to end food insecurity in our region.
Yeah. They said they had 10 people waiting outside the door today when they opened. So
I'll bring it by on Thursday when I'm heading to.
Great. Thank you so much.
Quick question while we're on the topic of lift up. Has anyone approached you with the numbers, the additional numbers of people out of work, not receiving a paycheck due to lack of snow? Do we have any numbers, any idea on what the effect is and how?
Well, clearly it's why Sam's office is so busy right now. Not only is it open enrollment, but there are people who have no income. I heard and haven't yet had a chance to ask the ski company. They're feeding people, which is fantastic, and we will get that information to you. And I'll see if we can find any information about numbers.
Yeah, and that opportunity started back in Bob Maynard's time with the ski company, so it's been going on for many, many years.
Yeah, they do a great job. It's a very difficult time for people who moved here to work and have no work right now.
Right.
So if anyone in the listening audience is one of those people, come to 0405 Castle Creek Road. We have emergency assistance, we have food cards, we have food assistance, and we have other benefits.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Canned goods on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So you just need to close the Board of Social Services special meeting.
Check me a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Let's see, where are we here? A little ahead, so let's do
Future agendas?
let's do future agendas.
That's a good one.
Get my mic going here so I don't get yelled at. Just a few items for you on future agendas. One isn't so much a future board agenda, but just a check-in on a meeting. The board may recall that, I think this is going back almost a year now. We started a capital reserves study or conversation with the city of Aspen. George and Rachel have been representing the county on that. That conversation evolved as we got into the capital reserves discussion. It became clear that we had some governance items that we needed clarity on, and it turned into also a governance discussion. There was a meeting scheduled by the city as a continuation of that, George, for this Thursday, but I just caught you were not on that invitation. And so I wanted to see if you were available for the Thursday meeting, or if we wanted to have another representative, if you're unavailable to participate.
I'm good. Did
in
Rachel
that.
get invited?
Yeah, I'm there. I can be there.
Yes, I don't know how you got dropped off. You must have been ornery at the last one. Or
That's Rachel's job.
And I do it
I was
well.
trying to be the peacemaker.
And with pride.
But Thursday,
It's at it's scheduled from 1 o'clock to 2:30
where?
at City Hall. See
Manager's
if I can
office,
find
I
it. I
believe.
believe it's in Steve Barwick's office.
In Barwick's office.
Not
Yep.
very big.
Who's going to be there?
It looks from the invite that Steve Skadron and Adam, who have been the representatives for the city, staff, Barry and Steve, and then myself.
So do we have any background what they're going to be proposing? or
I've emailed
do we
to
need
see.
do we need to meet a little ahead of time so we?
I'd be glad to.
What was the topic for this?
Well, it's kind of, it started off as the capital reserves discussion.
That.
And as we got into that conversation, I think there are questions around just governance and who's making
This is
what
going to the
decisions.
housing. Yeah, I forgot
Correct.
that part.
Yeah.
Going,
Yeah.
how are they getting involved in our capital reserves?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
No, it's for the
I'm like, wait a
the
minute.
housing.
Okay.
And the discussion started
Way back.
way back. So it's been ongoing. But I have written to see if they have an agenda for the meeting since they sent out the request.
All right, well, I could do that, but I just wonder if we should meet
Oh, yeah, I think
an hour early or.
So you guys have the
it would have to
plan.
be probably either tomorrow. I am.
How about before the meeting? I mean,
That's
just,
what I meant, a half hour before. No.
I'm booked out, unfortunately. But you guys could also meet, and I could see if Phyllis is available. So.
okay, actually, I have down here that's in Sister City's room, just for a small clarification.
Oh, it is in
Now
Sister
that I've
Cities.
looked at my calendar.
Well,
Why don't we?
see what the agenda is. And
let's
then
see
you
what the agenda is. When will you have that? Will you have that tomorrow? You don't know.
I've written
they're
and
just-
requested.
this
Yeah.
is-
have fun.
All right. I won't make a comment.
We'll rock.
I've got it down though. So
Okay.
1 o'clock tomorrow, Thursday, Sister City's room.
And then I just wanted to make a correction. You'll see that we have a resolution for appointing the chair and vice chair on the December 20th agenda. We're actually going to
discussion.
do that in the first meeting. Yeah, we had the work session the day before on the I believe the 19th to talk about that.
Yep.
And I think we just automatically scheduled it the day after. That will actually happen at the first regular meeting, which I believe is January 10th, where we do the
Actual
changeover.
switchover.
Yeah.
And what did we do about January 2nd?
That is the last thing on my list
Perfect.
here,
I'm
Patty.
giving you the segue.
So last meeting, we had kind of thrown out, do you want to meet on January 2nd? So far, we have one request for an item. It's one that we could move to another work session, but it is an afternoon item, which would be following up on the Energy Code addendum. I think we could go either way, whatever the board's pleasure is. We could have a short meeting on the 2nd to go over that, or we can reschedule that item and cancel the meeting.
The work session
up
on the
to you.
9th is pretty free, so maybe we could.
We have an exec session just automatically scheduled in there, and I don't know, maybe we should wait a week or so before we make that decision, just see if
Yeah,
there's anything timely that we need to meet on an exec.
We can definitely do that. I just kind of wanted to keep that on your radar
Yeah,
screen.
okay.
Yeah. And that's all I had for future agendas.
The only thing I would say is that, as I think I've said before, is on the meeting of the 20th, if there's bad weather, I'm going to have to leave early. And so I was kind of looking at it going, wow, we're starting the Tuesday before that at 1 o'clock, but I don't think there's any items we can move from the Wednesday over to the Tuesday and just go ahead and finish them, because of posting and things like that. So
Generally, that's the case, yeah.
okay, I just
Sorry.
because we're not starting till 1 on next week. Is that correct? 1
Yeah,
p.m.?
right now, unless we have other items. That we
Okay,
would-
well, I would just
Go
maybe
ahead.
talk to the attorney's office and let them know we're not adding an executive at the end of the 20th. So
Okay.
if they want any extra time, they
can do it in
better
the
do it
morning.
on Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the 19th, since we're starting a little late, we have some opportunity based on, I think, Patty's request last week to start a discussion in terms of a retreat themes.
Agenda.
Oh, yeah, I should have had that on there. We're going
Good
to
idea,
add a
Judge.
bit of time. It just didn't make so we did add time. I think it didn't make the printing
That's great,
for
George.
these
Thank you.
future agendas.
On Tuesday, next Tuesday?
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
time?
I think it didn't make the printing of this. I think we added it after these future agendas were published, George.
Okay.
So we did add time to talk about the retreat, and really it's more brainstorming,
Yeah.
trying to get an idea of the main focal points and such, so that then we can start to focus on who might be good panelists and,
Right.
and those sorts of things.
Thank you, George, for remembering that.
All right, good. Anybody else have anything on future agendas?
Good.
Okay, let's see. We're scheduled for a break at 2:30. We've got a
Open discussion?
citizen board review interview at 2:45. So, John, do you have anything on open discussion?
I don't.
Anybody else have anything on open discussion? Well, then let's just take a break.
Okay.
All right, very good. And so what time do we need to be back, George?
We are here with Chriselle, is that how I pronounce it? Chriselle Bryce?
It's like Michelle.
Michelle Chriselle. And Chriselle is here applying for Citizen Board for the Senior Services Council. So thank you very much for applying. When I was looking at your resume, it looked like I was missing a gap in terms of you've been here in the county at least the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you currently doing?
Right now I'm applying to graduate school.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing sort of volunteer work right now because I just graduated from school. I keep applying for jobs at the hospital and they keep interviewing me and then finding people who are older than me. So,
so if you're applying for grad school, if you were to get into grad school, when would you begin?
Either next year or the year afterwards.
Oh, okay. All right.
So George, I thought the same thing, the short term of maybe this appointment, but I think looking at Michelle's resume and her commitment to issues such as this, that it would definitely be worth considering her for appointment even for a year, year and a half, 2 years. You need some young blood on that senior council.
So we have 3 regular vacancies and 6 alternates. So were you applying for the regular or for the alternate?
I am not sure of
Not
what
sure.
the
You're
difference
just
is.
applying. Okay.
Yeah, this might.
I'll come up. I'm here. She will be applying for one of the regular positions.
And usually, how long is the term for a regular position?
I believe it's 4 years.
4 years.
But we have been flexible in the past, and we do know that probably within a year we'll have another vacancy opening up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Other questions from the board, Steve?
Well, I was curious too about your gap year because for most people that's between high school and when they go to college. And I thought, well, a person could have a gap year after they finish college, and if you were going to go to graduate school or into the Peace Corps or something and take a break in the meantime, I totally understand that. I serve on the Strategic Action Planning Group on Aging, which is a statewide group working on an action plan for dealing with aging issues. And I noticed that you're interested in end-of-life care and intergenerational programming, which are both topics that we've talked a lot about on the statewide level as being really important parts of aging issues. Could you tell a little bit about what your aspiration is in those fields?
Absolutely. Well, I hope to work in policy around end-of-life care. My degree is in anthropology, and I hope to get a master's and then eventually a PhD in medical anthropology, which studies the cultural side of health and healthcare. So I would... the way that it's useful is that in anthropology, I don't know if you're familiar with the discipline, but we use ethnography as our method of study, which means that we do participant observation, so we learn about communities and cultures from the ground up instead of the top down. And it's really useful when it comes to implementing policy change because it means that you understand the cultural inclinations that already exist and you're able to implement changes that are more easy to integrate into the existing culture because you understand what's natural for people. So my research was in death narratives. I interviewed 32 older adults in Aspen, actually, and had them tell me stories of others who they'd known who died and what made those deaths a good or bad experience, and then how they would hope for their death to be. And I identified the different sort of themes that came up throughout that, and it's great if you wanted to read it. It's only like 30 pages, so it's I really enjoyed that. That was great. And then the intergenerational mentorships. I started a program in Aspen when I was a senior in high school called Senior to Senior, and it pairs adults over 65 with seniors in high school. And initially I thought it would be mentorship, just the older adults mentoring the high schoolers, but now it's really reciprocal, which is pretty fantastic. They help each other. The older adults help the kids study for things. I know that my senior mentors helped me study the Arab-Israeli crisis for my history, IB history, because they had read about it in the papers and it was actually happening, and I helped them to better use their email, things like that. So that was really fun, and it still exists. This year it's a smaller group. This year we have 6 high schoolers in it, but in the past it was bigger. But I'm working on that actually as one of the volunteer projects I'm doing this year. So I think it's a really effective way to create a bond between those two pretty different groups and establish a connection that is really practical and also enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Greg, then Rachel?
You go ahead.
I was about to ask you about that senior to senior thing. It sounds really intriguing, and I'm wondering, would there be a place for it? Would you advocate for similar sort of activities? Oh.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd be more than happy to do so. So the way that we do it is initially with the pairing exercise is that we have them fill out questionnaires about themselves and they read them, and it's sort of I'd never heard of how sororities worked before I got to college. I wasn't in one or anything, but I've since understood. You know how they have their preference list they do, where the students and the groups do their preference? It's sort of like that. And then we have a speed dating-esque experiences where they go around tables and they ask each other questions about who was your favorite teacher when you were younger, and what's your best experience with this, what was your biggest achievement, that sort of thing. And they identify who they want to be paired with. And then we have had people go to the same college as their senior mentor, even when they weren't even looking at that initially. And then actually someone joined the same sorority as their senior mentor from that. And it's really been interesting. They've really supported each other throughout things. So I'm really proud of that, yeah. And I'd love to help implement it in any other way too.
It's exciting.
Thanks.
Rachel?
Well, you come with tremendous skills and resume. It's a question I usually ask people. I kind of feel like I don't need to, but what sort of skills would you bring to the board, and what would you like to accomplish with your role in the Senior Center Board?
Absolutely. So I think that one of the most obvious things is that I'm 22, so I have a pretty different perspective than a lot of people who are on the board already. Sometimes I feel like I'm still a high schooler, just kidding. But I do have a connection with the high school. I do that sort of thing, so I can bring younger people into it and really help foster those intergenerational relationships. And I feel like that's really important right now as our group, the older population, is expanding at such a
rapid pace.
An expected rate, I suppose, but people didn't really register that. So I think establishing those connections is something I'll be good at. And then also, I think that having not worked in this kind of a sphere before, I have there's that concept, what do they call it? It's like a newbie effect is what they call it.
You don't know the boundaries or what you can't do.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'll come into it and say, let's do this. And they'll say, can we do that? And I'll say, well, why not? And then maybe I'll get in trouble, or maybe it will work. So
thank you.
Thanks.
Greg?
I don't see anybody else on this list of members of the board who I know, several of whom, including Steve, but there's no one else on this board who could introduce the seniors to hip-hop.
I don't know how good I'd be at that either, honestly. But I can definitely explain Twitter to them if they want.
Well, in terms of intergenerational programming, we do have some young people on the Senior Services Council.
Circle of friends with that sort of.
Well, and then also, but just the regular members too. It's not all old decrepit people.
No, absolutely. I went to a meeting. I saw most of them are young. I feel like
you're just younger than the young.
Really young. I feel like I'm not a proper adult yet sometimes, if I'm honest. So.
But I don't see any problem. I mean, I wouldn't have any problem with even if you could only be working with the board for 1 year. It would be a tremendous learning experience for you, and it sounds like you would have lots of good input into what the board does. And a lot of people serving on the Senior Services Council is almost like a lifetime passion of theirs. They get term limited after 4 years, and then they'll come back on a year later. So people really enjoy serving on this board, and I think you would be a good addition to the board, even if it could only be for a year at this time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you for applying. We'll should be able to get back to you shortly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And I brought extra copies of my resume, but it seems like you all have them. So
They printed them up for us.
great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for applying.
Thank you. I'm excited.
And I'll catch up with you later about the stories about your dad.
Wonderful. He's always a riot wherever he goes.
Oh,
so.
he's a great guy.
Thanks so much.
Okay, let's see. It's hard to believe looking outside, but we're talking about the X Games.
The winter X Games.
The winter X Games.
It might mean X snow games one day.
Hopefully not. It's still a month away. We still got plenty of time.
The fall X Games, is that this year?
No, we still got plenty of time. Let's stay optimistic.
Okay, Mike Kramer with Pickens County Planning Staff, and next to me is Vanessa Anthes with ESPN. And we are here today to update the Board of County Commissioners on the permitting for the 2018 Winter X Games. They, as an ESPN, has submitted a major special event permit application with community development. We have taken that permit and we are running it through the permit process. This is an update to the Board of County Commissioners, and staff has tried to highlight a few areas of interest the board might want to talk about and talk to Vanessa about too. So this year's X Games is scheduled for January 25th, 2018 through January 28th, 2018. That's a Thursday through a Sunday. And as in previous years, there'll be skiing and snowboarding and snowmobile slash, I think, motorcycle, snow bike events. The venue is, again, Buttermilk, at the base of Buttermilk there. And staff is working with the Sheriff's Office and an Incident Command team processing this permit. This year's Incident Commander is Gabe Muthing with the Aspen Ambulance District, and he is in the audience today, along with the Sheriff's Office and the Fire Marshal. So the three areas of topics that we thought we'd bring up to the board were, again, concerts for this year, alcohol service at the events, and then building permits for all the construction that's going out at the base of Buttermilk. So concerts are proposed again, and they are proposed for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's January 26th through 28th. The Friday evening, we'll have an evening concert from 9:30 until 11 p.m. Saturday, there'll be two concerts. That's 5:30 to 6:30 and 9:30 to 11 p.m. And then Sunday, there's one concert from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. The concerts on Friday and Saturday are going to end at 11 p.m. And you may remember from last year's permit application, ESPN did request a midnight end time for one of those concerts, and that's not part of this year's request. The concerts will conclude at 11 p.m. this year. ESPN is anticipating a capacity of around 7,500 for attendees, talent, staff for the concerts. And they have applied for a Pickens County noise variance from our noise code. Our noise code regulates that 50 decibels be adhered to at the property line, and with the concerts, that just practically can't happen. So ESPN has correctly applied for a variance with environmental health, and they are processing that variance request. Alcohol service. The ESPN is proposing alcohol service, and I put down 3 different locations. It's actually 4, and I'll explain those. As in previous years, alcohol service is proposed for the concerts. That would be in the form of beer and wine. Last year, ESPN was able to use the ski company Bumps liquor license, which included the concert area for service of beer and wine. It's anticipated they'll use that again. Alcohol service will be offered also in the VIP area and the private viewing suites, which are 2 separate areas. Vanessa can provide details on if that's going to be sold or just provided to those areas. Then third, ESPN is working with the Inn at Aspen and Home Team Barbecue at the base of Buttermilk, and they are requesting that Home Team have a beer garden for beer and liquor service to general attendees of X Games. That's new for this year, and in speaking with the clerk's office, it's anticipated that Home Team will need a special event liquor license to do that. That's still being processed and fleshed out, but it's anticipated that will be required. And if that is required, then obviously you'll convene as the liquor board to consider that permit application. Then lastly, building permits. Many people have been asking if permits have been issued for the scaffolding and VIP viewing areas and the towers. Yes, we actually, as part of our permit application a couple years ago, we requested that ESPN submit building permits in July so that there was plenty of time for the building department to review those permits and then issue them. So permits have been applied for and have been issued, and work is obviously commencing out at Buttermilk. So those are the three topics that staff has brought up. Certainly we can talk about anything else with ESPN. The process for this is that it is an administrative review, and obviously the community development staff can bring this to the Board of County Commissioners for discussion and clarifications and direction to staff. But if everything seems kosher, staff will continue with an administrative review and then issue an administrative special events permit with this request, unless otherwise directed.
So thank you. So on the concerts, were those the times from last year? Did they all, the evening concerts end at 11 p.m.?
That was the latest that they ended. Yes.
And did we have any feedback from any of the residents at all?
No complaints and no feedback was received from Pickens County staff.
Okay. And then in terms of the alcohol, so we were looking at an additional venue using home team. So, and the hours would be similar?
The hours for liquor service, you're saying?
Yeah, similar to the other venue, where they're the enclosed venue.
Sure. I think we should ask Vanessa that question when she clarifies those points.
Yeah. Then when you do that, I would just like to hear from our sheriff's department if they see any issue with an increase in terms of alcohol use, because there's going to be more available, and it's becoming certainly more and more of an issue for RAFTA, as we all know, for those late night excursions back down Valley, although I'm sure we'll have some security people on board, but I'd be curious to hear from the Sheriff's Department on that.
George.
Rachel, then Patty.
Yeah, I guess my concern was really to discuss the alcohol component at Home Team Barbecue. And are they planning it on the Inn at Aspen grounds, or a special event permit that would extend into the actual ski company grounds or the X Game grounds? I mean, where would they have the beer garden?
Good question. We'll have to ask Vanessa that one.
Okay, thank you. I think the biggest concern for me is that when X Games first started, it was this: you can have a great time participating in athletics without alcohol. And there was always then kind of alcohol for the VIP tent. People were sponsoring. I understand that. Now we have a concert at it. People would have alcohol at a concert. That's not really something per se that your 12 and 16-year-olds will be going to, perhaps some. But that, it starts to seem more that the crowd itself at the base of the mountain would really be mixing together young kids there for the event and adults who've had to have alcohol to have a good time. I mean, I just am a little more concerned about what message is that sending. As we've always said, this is healthy, good, clean, athleticism, and you don't need stimulants of any sort to really enjoy the event. And this suddenly starts to sound more to me like parents saying, hey, you stay over at the some of the freebie events at the base and get some swag, and I'm going to go have a few beers. I just kind of wonder if we're starting to change the tenor of the event too much with that. And, it may not be a problem for a great many people, but it might really give a bad impression to a few that are susceptible to saying, look, this is how the adults enjoy themselves. That's how I'm going to start too. So,
Patty?
Yeah, I had a note too about the alcohol use there, but mine was I understand Rachel's concerns. Mine more about the issues we've had in past X Games when their alcohol was there and the increase in the need for Sheriff Department intervention and public safety intervention. So that would be a concern to me. Do we really need it there, and how do you guys feel about it? So that's one thing as part of that discussion. The other discussion item is concert notice to the neighbors. Are we going to be doing that against the neighbors again, and reminded that these nights are going to have... My mic is on and in front of me. I hate these mics, just so everybody knows this. I hate this mic. So, in other words, we need to make sure that we notice those neighbors. And the third thing I had was the parking and the issues on West Buttermilk Road. That came up again last year. There's that one homeowner up there that swears that people were putting trash out in his mailbox, and even though we had sheriff's officers up there, sheriff's deputies up there, there was no sign. But we need to address his concerns again this year, and I just think those are important. I'm moving my mic away now because I'm going to stop talking.
Other questions we want staff or Vanessa to, or anybody else to respond to? Greg?
Thanks for coming, Vanessa. It's exciting. I can't believe it's been here for so long. I was wondering if there's nobody from SKICO here, I guess, but I was wondering how the X Games continues to fit into the ski company's branding and marketing, and I think about the Aspen Way, which is this branding initiative, which I think is really wonderful, and they talk about respect and love and unity and commitment, and I'm just thinking, the word respect comes up for me because we have a kind of a dark skies initiative, and we're concerned about noise and light and recycling and composting and all these forward-thinking ideas on taking and walking gently with the planet. And I'd really like to see X Games embrace that and incorporate that into what they're doing. So the message this audience gets is that we really want to engender respect. Whether it's, look at the stars, if you can see them beyond the bright lights, and let's compost and let's recycle and let's try to take care of our home. I think that's something I would really love to see from X Games because it's such a powerful means of communicating to young people. And I know we have concerns about the alcohol. I think we'll probably have that sorted out, the traffic, the transportation. The sheriff's here to talk about that, I'm sure. But I'd really love to see how is X Games going to try to fit into the culture that we're promoting here. Thanks.
Okay. Steve, yes?
I have a question, Mike, about the home team liquor license. Right now, they do have a liquor license for serving on their premises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But then to do it for a special event like this, that would then allow the people to take the drinks outside in the direction of the base of Buttermilk, or why can't they just serve like they always do inside their premises without getting a special permit?
As I understand that the home team would still continue liquor service inside. I don't know what the agreement between X Games and the Inn at Aspen and home team is for interior use. But there is a distinction when there is a special event, and liquor or beer or wine would be served to attendees of that special event, not associated with that liquor license. So as I understand from the clerk's office that they will more than likely have to make an application for a special event liquor license from the liquor board. And in that you would see that they'll probably delineate boundaries of where people could go with liquor, and that would get fleshed out in that permitting process.
Okay.
So who would like to respond to some of these? Joey, you had your hand up. Why don't you grab a mic?
Good afternoon, board members. I guess I'll start with the alcohol question that Rachel raised before and that George posed a question to. Just to refresh everybody's memory, back 15 years ago,
2002.
The first 2 years we had X Games, it was an alcohol event. Bumps was serving alcohol, and it was out of hand. So after the second year, we got together with the X Games at our direction, and they significantly strictly limited alcohol to the Inn at Aspen only, problem solved. The only issues we then had were people bringing in their own alcohol, which we try and mitigate the best we can with ESPN private security. That morphed into a few years ago when we started having the after-event concerts, serving beer, and I think there was another alcohol provider, like Peppermint Schnapps or something, was whatever, and it was limited service, and it really didn't impact us too much. We didn't see a lot of overly served people, and I think it's because a cold beer on a January night just doesn't sound like it's something that most people want to do. So whenever ESPN has offered alcohol service, it's usually been well controlled. The VIP tent is a non-event for us. I think I can speak confidently this year that if they provide the same level of security that they have in the past with home team, I seem to remember at one time in the past we may have had an expanded outdoor food service area out there that was always very well fenced in, and it would be hard, if not impossible, to hand beer or something over that fence. So I think if it's well monitored by private security and hotel security, it shouldn't really impact us that much. So I hope that answers your question, George. As to the question about the homeowner on West Buttermilk, Gabe Muthing handled that last year, and I think he has 2 cents on that, and then I have some questions for you guys about the event. So, Gabe, if you want to weigh in.
Grab that mic.
Grab the next microphone that's available.
Speak into the mic.
And is the red light on? Make sure.
It is.
Okay.
All right. I don't want somebody to yell at me.
Your mic.
It's a little brutal for you guys. As you suggested, actually, Patty and I had a great conversation last year about the homeowners up on West Buttermilk, and specifically the one that we had talked about. We did a lot of planning directly after that initial night when we had the problem. The issue that came up for us was that we had a new complexity added to our event, and that is our Uber and Lyft drivers. And they were coming from other locations, didn't know the area well, and were finding different ways to get up there, thinking that that was a different way around the venue. We very quickly curtailed that. We also helped the homeowners up there by placing some cones, placing some other extra security up there, and I think by the end of the weekend that we had done a pretty good job of controlling that. That being said, this year we are working on some plans to control that even better.
Great.
So we are very aware of those problems up there, and hope to make it a non-issue this year.
And I did visit the Incident Command Center and talk to Gabe, and it was just an experience going there. It was really cool to see how everybody was working and how it was set up. So that, despite our discussion, which was great, just seeing the venue, the Incident Command Center was really of interest.
And my question for you is, historically, this has been an event that we participate in for 3 or 4 days, plus the planning, and we don't bill ESPN for any of our services, and at your direction never have. Colorado State Patrol bills, Aspen Ambulance bills. There's some other public safety. I don't know if there's other public safety agencies, but there are other agencies that do bill. This year will be complimentary. That was your direction last year. But I do think it's proper for me to ask, is that the direction we want to keep going in future years when we start to negotiate with ESPN as soon as this event is over?
So,
This is the
Joey,
last year of the current contract?
2 more years.
I think they have this year and 2 more.
Joey, do you bill for any other special events that are held in the county with Aspen or Snowmass?
If we go, the bike race, for example, I don't think we didn't bill for the bike race. Historically, it's been my impression that if it is a very public event that is beneficial to this community and we all get something from it, it's something that we give back in return for the people that they're bringing here and the exposure we get and the fun that we all get to have at their expense.
I might be able to add something to the conversation. Generally, Joey's right. If it's a community-oriented event, particularly benefiting a nonprofit, there has been just not a charge. For major special events, there has been a charge for in-kind services historically. I want to say going back to is either 2012 or 2013, we did a special, I believe it was 2012 as we were coming out of the recession, where we looked at major special events, and there were two at that time that the board in particular decided to support with in-kind services. At the time, that was the U.S. Pro Challenge bike race and X Games, and that was a commitment that went through as X Games was considering the new contract. And so it's something that the board could revisit as a policy. I think it was something that you did adopt as a policy when we were having our special events discussions many years ago. Now, different board actually. But we could be looking at that over the next couple years or next year if that's the board's desire.
All right, thoughts on that, Greg?
Our policy for a commercial event would be to actually charge for services, right? Say a TV commercial or another commercial event that's
That's right. If we have Jeep who wants to close Castle Creek Road, and example, we had the Victoria's Secret shoot, which was 100 Victoria's Secret models up at
you didn't
Castle
charge
Creek
them,
Road.
did you, Joey?
We did charge them, and the deputies gladly took their time and a half.
I heard they were lined up to get who got picked first.
So if it is that kind of profitable special event, big company, yes. But, John brought up a great point. We do have some new board members since the last time we had this discussion. I just would like to throw it out there again. It could range. It could be 20,000 more. The State Patrol, as I said, bills, Aspen Ambulance bills. At the tip of my tongue, I don't know who else bills back ESPN. Usually when we get reimbursed from the ski company. It's not really ESPN laying out the money. We have to remember our host is the ski company for this event.
Rachel?
Yeah, no, I just am thinking back as we put together our county strategic plan and the three different categories. One was economic, sustainability, and success. And so that's where the allocation came from to say we will support this event and the other event because of the national publicity and things like that. Now, it's easy enough to forget that when the economy's kind of been superheated now, but it's hard to say would that be different later. I appreciate you bringing the conversation forward, and I think that there was a commitment made via that past contract, and so we're not going to change that in the middle of it, and it's just a discussion point for the board to consider in the future. We don't have a economic development fund. There are a lot of other events that do bring people into town. I think that it'd be important to kind of look a little bit towards parity in that level, but when you talk about what do you have over the course of a weekend? 75,000, 80 people. That's a very, let alone the television coverage, that's a very significant contribution. And the city contributes a lot, and this was a smaller chunk of what we could put in, and we did. But, the city, I seem to recall a number of years ago, helping fund the lights for the night activity at Buttermilk. It was city council 11 years ago at least. So, things like that. And it's just been a lot of cooperative efforts to keep X Game here, and you've been a great partner. And so I'd like to look at it, but it's certainly about the next contract, not the current one.
Other thoughts?
To me.
Yeah, I would be open to looking at that for the next year's contract. I'd be interested to know what the ambulance charges and state police, how they figure that out on an hourly basis. We do contribute to the ski company through the ELTC.
Transportation.
For transportation, I forget how much we.
120.
So the community does contribute to that, and in the past we've also contributed via the sheriff's department and in kind, because we've, as Rachel said, we've noted the overall benefit for the community for this event and in the past the Pro Cycle Challenge. So just one or two events that we've done that for when we know we're going to get national and international marketing. But I would be open to looking at that and looking at what that might look like. But you were saying, Joey, that ultimately you would think that it would be the ski company that would actually be reimbursing, not ESPN. So that would be important to know.
In the past, what we've done, and I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we had a budget shortfall in our training, and I did ask ESPN and the ski company if they could supplement some of that training budget, and they did. I think they both wrote us. I think the ski company at least wrote us a check for $5,000, and I believe ESPN did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So whenever we need help, it's there for us, and it's never been a problem for my budget. However, and I know you all will understand this when the time comes, if I have a major wildfire and my overtime's depleted, this would be something I'd ask for you to replace because this came out of my budget. And it was an in-kind service, and could I please have the money back? To answer your question about the State Patrol, I think they bill at a flat rate. I don't think they bill at their hourly overtime rate. So I think the number I heard last year could have been up to $60,000 that they're getting back for their services. I could remember bills as high as $30,000 because what we used to do, and I don't think we do it anymore, is we would send ESPN and the ESPN and the ski company a bill that would say services are $30,000 with a zero balance, just so they know.
Document that.
Just so they know what we gave them in our services.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Greg?
I'm just thinking in a future contract, perhaps it's on an ongoing year-to-year basis. If we were feeling generous during a recession where they really needed a hand, maybe we can make a dispensation regarding fees. But if it's a flush year and everybody's making money, everyone else is getting paid and we're not, I think I have a problem with that. So maybe we should look at it on an annual basis.
Speaking for ESPN, I think that is a big ask that 6 months before their event we may have a supplemental for them to decide on. I think that would be something we would have to do probably now or close to the event to say next year we're charging. So they can make their budget adjustments. Just like us, it's unfair to hit somebody in June with a fee that they might not be depending on.
Yeah, I would suggest that when we have our debrief after the event, that we bring this discussion back and you have perhaps some more of this background
I'll have better
information.
Numbers for you too.
Yeah, then we can have a better discussion on that. Rachel?
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to what Greg is saying, because I'm not sure I agree. There's a difference between our town being flush and whether or not ESPN is flush. Given some of the stuff I read on the stock market, there's been some issues there. So, there is a difference that way. I think you still need to measure the benefit to the town. It's not about whether the economy is good in the town and bad in the town. That to me starts to get you into the boom bust syndrome where, it's so really bad again, we have to go do something big for economic growth, and then, it's good again, so let's back off. And, so I'm more of a steady state type of person, that this is a single, solid, iconic event that has become associated with our town. I think it helps fill our county sales tax coffers as much as it does the city. And so, allocating some of that towards events like this makes sense to me, but I'm willing to look at the numbers. And if they're really getting, out of line for what we can carry and absorb during the next contract, I think that's quite reasonable to take a look at it.
All right. Were there other questions, Vanessa, you're going to respond to? I know you were making some notes there.
I have a little list of your guys' questions I'm happy to
Yeah,
address.
that'd be great.
First was some questions regarding the beer garden and hours. That will be closing 30 minutes prior to our last competition. So it will be in line with our venue hours. Where the beer garden is going to be located, it will be on the hillside of the Inn at Aspen, so the south side of that venue. If you go out there right now and you see their patio area with the lawn, if you're familiar with the venue, we have a fire lane that goes behind what historically has been the Monster and the Navy structures. That fire lane will still be maintained, and we will then have a fenced-off perimeter where the Inn at Aspen will serve on their property in that venue perimeter. Guests will be ID'd coming into that fence line via our private security, and then when they go to purchase a drink, they will be ID'd again by a home team bartender, where at that point they will be given a wristband. So it'll kind of be two checks and balances, and we will have security along that fence line to make sure that no beer is handed over that area. We'll be working with Parker and the fire department to determine the capacity for that space, so it's a safe environment for those that are looking to get a beverage. There is a meeting set, I believe, tomorrow with Jeanette Jones to kind of go over all of the locations where alcohol is being served, to kind of look at it on a map and make sure there are no issues with any of the locations where we're serving alcohol. I believe those are all my alcohol questions.
What time in the morning would the beer garden start, or in the day?
Don't believe I have our full venue hours on me, but I believe it's 12 or 1. I need to confirm those, but it's not 9 in the morning.
It's not 8 o'clock in the morning.
No. Yeah, I need to double check those.
Okay, thank you.
West Buttermilk Road, we...
I think I'm good on that.
You're good on that one? Okay.
Thank you, though.
And then the environmentality aspect, ESPN years ago, I'd have to look, implemented a green team and an environmentality plan where we compost, recycle, trash, specific bins for wood, cabling, all those components, trying to really minimize our footprint. We do have numbers, which I can get back to Mike to distribute to the board, that have our diversion numbers from the landfill that really show kind of what we try to do to lessen our impact. We also then work with local organizations in terms of anything after the event, whether it's carpeting or AstroTurf or extra food from catering and things like that, to help not just have things fill the landfill. I do know ASC does have a representative here if you did have specific questions for kind of...
So that's still ongoing, the green team, and that's still ongoing every year?
Yep.
And then also you're promoting it at the event so people know.
Yeah, as you walk around the event, you'll notice all the receptacles have different bins with color-coded trash liners. So as they get collected throughout the venue, when they take them back to where all the dumpsters are stored, you're not with a pile of all white trash bags. The red ones go in the red dumpsters, the green ones go in the green dumpsters. The dumpsters are color-coded. So there's really an effort made to make sure there's no contamination in those different areas.
That's great. Glad that's ongoing.
Yep.
Patty?
I have 2 other quick things. The first is, what do you do if there's no snow? I know we don't want to even think that way, but...
we do a snow dance. Just kidding.
Okay.
It's time for us all to go wash our cars at the same time.
Yeah.
So we are very fortunate that Buttermilk has an amazing snowmaking system, and all of our courses and venues are within the confines of that system. So they've been doing a great job already of turning the guns on, blowing hard at night, and we're just going to continue to make snow. We do have contingencies in place that we have implemented in prior years where we make course adjustments. It's obviously something we don't want to do, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we're very fortunate with the tools that Buttermilk has, and we'll kind of keep evaluating as we get closer to our load-in in January.
The second thing, and I probably should have started out with this, is a disclosure on my part. My son-in-law does work for X Games. As to my knowledge, as of right now, I don't know if he's confirmed working with them again this year, so I chose not to step out of the room.
Okay.
Steve?
I drove through New England the year that the Lake Placid Olympics were being held in February, and it looked just like this. at Christmas time, they had no snow except for man-made snow on the ski runs in New England was the only snow that we saw. And every day I watch the snowmaking at the base of Buttermilk, and I have no doubt that we have snow there now. Mm-hmm. It's man-made snow, and the ski company is so good at making snow, moving it to where they need it, and shaping it to suit the needs of the X Games that I don't have any doubt that the ski company will have it totally prepared for you, whether we get natural snow or not.
Rachel, is something, Greg?
Yeah. Well, two things. One is to follow up on Greg's kind of excellent question about how you recycle and things like that. The one thing the county and the landfill are much more aggressively pursuing this year is actually composting of food waste. And I don't know if you've talked with Kathy Hall from the landfill about how they might be able to assist you in setting that up, but we're trying to divert as much of everything as we can from the landfill that doesn't need to be buried. We have found out our landfill has more space constraints than we ever thought before, and so we're really doing this food composting with restaurants and individual households and complexes. So that would be kind of perhaps a new twist to add if possible. And again, I think Kathy might be able to assist you with how we could implement that. I realize it's hard. You end up more with personnel helping with the sorting and making sure people are dropping it in the right spots, but I'd like to put that out there. And then it may sound silly, but I think you really should consider having some breath mints at the exit of the beer garden. If these folks are going to go back in and be mixing with the 8, 9, and 12-year-olds, we're hoping they're responsible adults, but, that would be a reasonable thing to offer people as they're leaving.
Greg.
The last little bit, just want to bring up light again. I know the only book complaints I've ever heard about X Games are the amount of lights and how late they stay on. And I know we that came up last year, and just want to make sure we're all still paying attention to how much light is put out there. We pride ourselves on having dark skies and not a lot of light emanating from homes or businesses. And when X Games comes, it's pretty bright, and it illuminates the entire valley. So it's something to be aware of and be concerned about.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Do we need a decision here, or is this going to come back to us?
No, it'll just move forward administratively.
Yeah,
for a liquor license, it'll come back to us.
This is an administrative approval, but we, on major events like this, we bring them to you to see if there's additional direction and make sure you understand what's going on with the
it will come back to us
process.
in terms of the liquor license, right? For
liquor license, that would come back, and then if the board directed that you would like it to come back for a decision, of course we would do that.
One last thing, just the intercept lot. I remember there was discussion of enforcement and presence from the police presence at the intercept lot. How did that go last year?
We're going to do better at that this year than we did last year. We have a plan for that. Hopefully we will get to weed out some of the alcohol at the intercept lot before it hits the venue. So we're going to focus. We've got some operational changes that we're going to make that I'm not comfortable getting into in a public venue, but I think that we're going to do a better job at the intercept lot of heading off the alcohol before it gets to the front gate.
Yeah, thanks. And I'd also ask that you work with RAFTA on when the concerts end, as people are heading back down Valley, to ensure that there's not going to be any problems for the passengers and the bus drivers.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you.
George, that brings up we always pass that last minute resolution or something about enforcement of alcohol.
I think we did that.
Didn't we do it multiple years?
I think we did it perpetually as long as they're so just for the public, the intercept lot will be a no alcohol zone for the 3 or 4 days around
With enforcement opportunities, privileges, authorities.
I'm sorry?
With an enforcement authority on that property.
Correct.
Perfect. And we did multiple years last year. Okay.
All right, well, thank you,
Great,
Vanessa.
thanks.
Mike,
Vanessa,
thank
good
you
to see you.
for the team.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. And thanks everybody else who showed up for this debrief.
Let's see. Next is an airport update.
Sorry we made you wait after we got you here early.
We were ahead and then we were behind.
That's okay.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I need to get with ESPN
yeah, I
on
got
the
it.
lighting issue that continues to linger.
To lighten up that airport.
Want them to turn off the lights, but not the obstruction lights.
Yeah, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Kinney, Airport Director. Got a update here for the County Commissioners. Just two quick items, but I think one that's very substantive and another one's more of a community event. The TSA and airline baggage screening project is coming to a conclusion, so thank you again for your support and funding of that project almost a year ago. You supported that modernization of the baggage screening program for a couple reasons to reflect back for folks. One was that our smallest carrier, American Airlines, had over 400 bags each week not making it onto the flights for people going back to their home destinations. Not because of penalty weight issues, aircraft performance, but just because it was a throughput issue. TSA, and so you could almost triple that when you put it all together when it involved Delta and United as well as American. So pretty substantial inconvenience. The other component was the TSA and the airlines having worker comp issues. The ergonomics of those low profile conveyor belt systems and picking up those heavy bags and twisting it dozens upon hundreds of times in a shift. People were dropping at a much higher rate than the normal workers' comp and on-the-job injuries. So those were the issues that we were trying to accomplish. This is looking just a few weeks ago. You're looking towards the north, so away from the town, and to the right is the overhang baggage area that they historically had used. So we're putting in a light stanchion as well as a conveyor system foundation. So now you're looking back out towards Owl Creek and the Airport Operations Center if you were to come out of the backside, the operational area of the airlines. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Apologize. This is just another stage of it. They had laid the foundation in preparation for the concrete pour, and then in preparation for about a 70-foot racetrack, if you will. If you look at it from above, a bird's eye view, it would look like a horse racetrack. About 70 feet in length on each side, and it allows tugs to get in there on every side. So this was just a few weeks ago. And then they removed the conveyor system. You're looking into the TSA screening room. So off to the right behind that worker, if you were able to go through that wall, you'd go into the United Airlines ticket counter in the lobby area. But we removed this conveyor system. That wasn't quite as low as that piece of equipment sitting on the ground, but it wasn't much higher. And so they're in the process of reinstalling that. So now here's looking back at the terminal building, again up towards the north. You can see that there's a temporary overhang structure there, and in the middle you have a tug with multiple carts pulled up to the flat plate carousel area. Now this is looking into it. There's that same tug and cart. So that is the big racetrack loop that is now going to be able to be a kind of a community consortium sortation. So you'll get 100 bags out there and maybe 25% split equally. It goes to LAX, DFW, Houston, to San Francisco. They will then pull up carts, sort according to where the destination is, whereas before they would just put them on the ground, and it was a real kind of mess. Very, very, very manual, time-consuming process. So much quicker, much more efficient, much safer for the folks. This is the conveyor system coming out of the United area and also coming out of the TSA area. So if you were able to go just to the right off the screen, that's where that conveyor system had been removed. So this now takes it out, whereas before it stopped right there in the middle before that
panel that has CL1-04 on it. It stopped just to the right of that. So it's the addition of that conveyor system as well as the flat plate carousel. This is now that same angle looking back where the worker was and that piece of equipment was laying on the floor. So the wall has been restored, but you can see the black opening area that goes back into the TSA, as well as a door had been installed there, whereas before you had to walk all the way around the terminal building. This is now looking back at that black screen in the middle of the screen here, and that same door. So this is inside the TSA area. You can see there's a machine right in front of us here, a roller table. If you go straight towards the door, but a little bit to the left, you can actually see there's a brake. There's a big spring going vertically. That actually tilts back down, as does the roller table immediately in the foreground. You can see the handle on the side of the roller table. That's spring loaded, and it's very easy to raise it up so people can pass through. So there's one machine in front of you, another machine at the end of the picture, and if you were to turn around, there'd be another machine. Here's a different angle. You can see the three CTX machines, one to the left, dead center, and then far right you can see the arching opening to the machinery. Huge improvement in terms of capacity and getting people through. This is a photo of the terminal today. I wish the contrast was a little bit better, but you can see to the far right there's some ticketing check-in kiosk there, and the wall is white on the person's immediate left if they were checking you in, as well as right behind them. That has been moved forward about 30 feet. And behind that white wall, as well as on the left-hand side where it's a little dark going back towards the back wall, that's an S-curve where a new conveyor belt system has been installed, just expediting bags from United and Delta into the back of the TSA room. Before it was a manual entry for every bag to get it through that doorway system. On to our second item. This is a display of, and I'm sorry that the capability of the phone wasn't a little bit better. Maybe it was the photographer as well.
Yeah, actually, when we look at that screen, it looks really good. The
there we
screen
go.
is a little washed out.
A little bit better, yes. But this is a ranching display inside the Aspen area. So there's some original ranch photographs here of the existing airport property, what it is now transitioned to over time, as well as some of the ranching components inside the town. So just kind of a neat historical display by the Aspen Historical Society that's taken up a little bit of a different feel to what's going on out there on the walls. And here is the wolf display that has been out there. There's about 30 different photographs. Originally this was displayed in the rotunda of the nation's capital. Aspen is the first stop inside the lower 48 to just promote the concept of reintroduce wolves back into the wilderness beyond Idaho and Montana. They show a variety of screenshots, and then they have a great storyline below it talking about the dominance to growing up as a wolf, the different habitat and habits that they have, that they're not the spooky creatures that they're made out to be, as we all grew up watching wolves in cartoons. So,
How long will that exhibit be there?
I'm sorry?
How long will that exhibit be there?
They'll be here through the end of March. So if the commissioners as a group or individually, however that works best for you folks, if you'd like to come out and see a tour of that, we'd be more than happy to arrange that and get you walking through this display. But it's pretty impressive of the story of the folks and how long they lived out there in the wilderness with them. And so
actually, I think Patty raised this question when we first heard this, that because we heard that tours were going to be available, but this is in a secured area. So how does that work?
We're allowed, per the TSA, for badged employees that we can take up to escort a certain number of people. Okay. So we could get a couple people and escort you through there. And maybe just added value to the viewers watching today, we could take the Board of County Commissioners and the first 20 people who want to sign up. We can make that happen and give them a tour through the screening area on the wolf display. It's pretty impressive.
Okay. The conveyor belt work looks really impressive. Did we have to do a budget supplement for that? I just don't recall
No,
that.
we did.
That one must have been a while ago.
1.9 million or something?
Yeah.
It was a lot.
We did a budget supplemental, and then we also came back because there was some surprises inside that building in terms of its age, and originally designed as 3 standalone buildings and then cobbled into one. So a lot of things that are marked 1 pound actually turn out to be half a pound, and it's problematic in terms of the infrastructure, but we're getting through it.
And then when will that be operable?
If beauty's in the eye of the beholder, if the weather holds from a construction perspective, it'll be done before the end of December. They need 2 weeks of clear weather to finalize and put together that final structure that will be made out of metal for snow loads.
But so for the conveyor belt, though, that won't be operable until the end of December, so we missed the holiday rush?
Oh, great clarification. Thanks, George. Fully functional today.
Oh, okay,
The
thanks.
conveyor belt system.
Huge.
Okay, Steve was up then, Greg?
John, I was able to go on the tour of the wolf exhibit the other night at the opening event, and it is the most amazing pictures in there. There are about 5 or 6 pictures in the ticketing area that anybody can go in and look at, but I would urge everybody to go, to set up a special time. And when we went in, there were no more departing flights that day. There was one plane came in while we were all in behind the secure area, but they just went right through into the arrival area. So it worked out fine having a big group in there looking at the photographs. I did receive several comments from people there that the ranching photographs and the wolf photographs are in a huge contrast to the real estate advertising that is plastered all over every other bit of the walls in there. And I think the sentiment was they would rather not see the real estate things at all, which I know you get advertising revenue for that, but I'd be curious how the guests arriving at the airport and departing from the airport, what their take on what they're looking at on the walls is.
Our experience, Steve, has been very similar. The pendulum has swung into sense of place. Whether it be photographs of the natural beauty here, or wildlife, or kind of the history of mining, or the history of ranching. So we have 18 months left on that 5-year contract, and I've already met with the operator and shared with him that we will not continue with that scope, size, and theme. It's just too much. It's it's the number one complaint we receive at the airport, is that it's too much sensory overload. So we want to scale it back, compartmentalize it, and really when you land here, I remember coming here and interviewing, and I was so excited to get in the terminal building, and turned to my wife and said, "You have no idea you're in Aspen," and you didn't unless you looked out the window. And so I think we really need to create that, and you folks have really shared that with me too, that's something you'd like to see at that terminal building. So we're very mindful of that and looking forward to that time frame to get more things in there like this.
Also, it was my first opportunity to see Jedediahs in action there, so I was really glad to be in that secure area and be able to check out Jedediahs at the same time.
But yeah, they're doing well. I think they're turning they're elevating the game in a couple different ways for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's Greg?
Just last question about that, the big turntable out on the tarmac side. So the bags come off United or TSA down one channel and then go onto this big thing, and they're selected off for each particular flight. So they've got to reselect them again. Is that how it was done before, or before they would just come out and set them down in piles? I wasn't sure exactly how it worked before this device.
Yeah, Greg, basically, they'd set them down in piles. Okay, here's the San Francisco pile, and let's put it over here because that flight's now delayed, and whoops, now LAX is delayed. Let's put that pile over there. And it was tripping hazards, and there was times where there was It was just it was a mess.
So it's just like a reverse of the baggage claim. It's going around until they select it based on the tag and take it to whatever flight.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or they can put it on carts, and then it's just a fraction of the effort physically demanding on the employees.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, finally.
Okay, well, thanks, John, for the update.
Thank you.
You'll be busy pretty soon here.
Very soon. We've seen it starting.
Seen it started, yeah. Good. All right. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to go in exec session for the purpose of the BOCC-Ivanhoe litigation, Phillips acquisition, Twin Lakes application. Those are pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024B, and then personnel pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024F.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. Thanks, Grassroots. And we're going to adjourn up to the tower room.
Did we add something?
Well.